Okay, all right. Hell right. It's another Saturday afternoon here in the good old Midwest, USA, Earth, 20th century. I'm wearing the Yankees hat because the Yankees right now are the best team in baseball. But we'll even talk about if freaking baseball is even going to continue by the time this week is over with. Freaking somewhere Gary Bettman is smiling that Rob Manfred has officially become the biggest dumbass of all the commissioners in sports. But we'll get into that later. That's Mac. I'm Black. Welcome to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. The NHL's kicked off. The Rangers lost earlier today to the Hurricanes, but I'm really not that upset about it because Lundqvist looked really good. We got the Blackhawks and Oilers on right now. Strome just scored not too long ago, so it's one apiece right now between those two teams. But we'll break all that down. We got the AFC East and North to preview later on today, along a lot list of other miscellaneous stuff. But I do want to start off with a hilarious story because I went to go DoorDash this past, actually it was on Thursday. I was at an apartment complex taking a 7-Eleven order, and it seemed to be like the Eastern European area of Mount Prospect. So, to not get real specific, the it's now 2-1 Blackhawks.
Sir, Jonathan Tays.
The apartment complex went 353. No, it went 355, 357. Where I was supposed to go was 359. So I just vaguely assumed that the next building over was 359.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to go to 2B. So I pressed on it. They buzzed me in. I went to go leave the order at the door like they asked. And this kid came and opened the door and immediately closed it. And I'm thinking, like, why are you acting weird? Like, you ain't never seen a black man walk up the steps before. You ordered this drinks, not me. So then my spider senses started kicking off. Like, hey, man, this may not be the building. So when I went outside to look, I was like, before I close this door, let me go outside and look. I went outside and look. Bro, it said 415. So
How did they jump like that?
I don't know. It threw me off. But so I'm walking back and forth, right? And the ladies look at me on the app. She could tell I'm walking back and forth. Finally, she called. She said, oh, it's the next building over. I'm like, you could have put that in the description notes. You know, like you know,
leave it outside.
You feel what I'm saying? You see me out here struggling. So then, but the funny part of this whole story is, I can only imagine what was going through that kid's head when he thought it was like maybe a family member or something. And you see this 6, almost 1, 300-pound bare black guy walking up your stairs with a red bag.
He thought he lost the bet or something.
Oh, my God, dude. He thought he was finna get his ass whooped or something. I don't know. All I know is I didn't hear a lick of English being spoken in that building. So I know that they were speaking whatever Eastern European country that they represent. And they were like, oh, my God, it's this black guy out there. And I don't know who he is. And he rang the bell. And I was laughing for a solid 15 minutes. If I could have like a GoPro in my hat just so I could just like document this stuff, oh, it would be internet gold.
DoorDash while black is becoming a thing too now. I've seen multiple videos of DoorDash delivery people just trying to do their job. You know, it's a little bit sad to see.
Yeah, and I don't know what areas that is because I mean I ain't gonna lie, I'm in Niles, Des Plaines, Park Ridge, and that, and I mean it's. You know, it's majority white people. I don't have no problem. I go, deliver, I'm in the car.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, that's a job, right? It's like, just leave me alone. Let me do my thing. First day, guys. Yeah, no, and the funny part is, you know, you are an essential worker now, and you've been an essential worker, and this is like something that's so like deeply ingrained to the new way we live, and yet people are still kind of like flippant about like, you know, I'm sure you know tips are not as good as they should be sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. It could
so you know, it's everybody's adjusting, but it seems like this is kind of the way that the world works now.
Shout out to my my homie and my former kitchen manager, Jared Little, who is a diehard Canes fan right now. And he just said, let's go Canes. Enjoy this win because we're racking the next 3. That's all I know. Once Panarin and Zibanejad get their feet back wet, it's a wrap because I'm telling you, Lundqvist looked great. Them 2 goals he gave up, one was on Mark Stahl because it deflected off his skate. Get the hell out of the way or put your stick down or do something. Every time something bad goes wrong, Mark Stahl's always in the mix.
3-1 Blackhawks. Brandon Sauter. It's looking bad for Edmonton.
So it's looking bad right now for Edmonton. And like I was looking at I get all these notifications from the Score on my phone, like the Score app, not 670 Score, but Score app.
Yeah.
And they're like, will this be the year that we finally see Connor McDavid's playoff?
They've been trying to talk him up.
I swear to God, you would have thought that Connor McDavid was like the next Wayne Gretzky. And it's just like, dudes, calm down. Like, he's good, but he's not Sidney Crosby good.
It's the same thing they did to Matthews.
Good.
Same thing they did to Matthews in Toronto. It's just like you have this really nice talent, and you just don't let him get to the point until you crown him before he performs. And you can't do that in hockey. I mean, the Blackhawks are a good example of that. It's like, they had the Kane and Taves draft or drafts, and the next thing it takes 2 or 3 years to really develop, and nobody crowned them until they started winning championships or Stanley Cups.
Exactly. But no, Connor McDavid's the next big star.
You know what it is, though? It's because the NHL has a really hard time marketing their athletes.
True.
It's like similar to the NFL in the way that, like, obviously they're wearing helmets and very hard to see their face. But I don't even think it's that. I think it's just, the NFL is so deeply ingrained in this country that you're always going to be able to market players, right? The way that you want to. But it seems like the NHL, if you're not a team that's done dynasty like stuff like the Penguins and the Blackhawks and the Bruins, you're looking at sort of being caught in the middle, and they're trying to make sure that guys like Connor McDavid and Matthews don't get caught up in that. But you got to show something before you get praise.
Like the Edmonton Oilers to me are hilarious because this is the same team that at one point had Yakupov, and then they had Nugent Hopkins, and now they have McDavid, and then they traded what's the goalie we had? Cam Talbot. Yeah. And everyone's like, oh man, look at the Oilers. Here they come. They got a bunch of good young stars and this and that. Still haven't figured it out. And like of the 4 that I just mentioned, the most disappointing out of those 4 was Nail Yakupov, because remember he was a second overall pick at one point, and they were hyping him, and they were hyping him up so bad, and I mean he was absolutely lazy and never lived up to the hype, and I don't even think he's in Edmonton anymore. So yeah, I don't know, man. Ever since you know how it is. Like if you think about it, the Edmonton Oilers are kind of like that upper class of the Canadian teams, because they're still hanging on to the glory days of Messier and Gretzky when they won like 2 or 3 cups or whatever it is, and they still try to hang on to it. What can we do to make this team so great? But you're right, they did the same thing with Austin Matthews. He comes in, scores 4 goals, and then since then it's like, I mean, he's all right. Like ever since he came up, John Tavares is kind of more or less taking the spotlight for him for what it's worth, because he went and left the Islanders, which I would have done the same thing too because the Islanders freaking suck. Left the Islanders to go play in Toronto because that's his home country, and he's kind of taking the spotlight over Austin Matthews. So I'm with you. Like outside of Crosby and outside of Ovechkin, who are you now putting on the map to say these are the next big stars in the NHL?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're trying to do. Right,
and think about it. They're both getting old now.
Yeah.
Sidney and Alex, Alex is still one of, if not the best goal scorer going right now.
Yeah.
But he's getting old. He's not that spring chicken anymore.
It's what I'm trying to explain to Blackhawks fans about Kane and Taves. It's like you better enjoy this shit while we have them, man, because Kane maybe not so much. I think Kane is going to always have that that natural scoring instinct. But Taves, for example, there's a lot of talk about trading Taves over the offseason, and it was like maybe this isn't the time to let him linger. But both of these guys are on max contracts, and both of these guys are getting a little bit older, and you got to be ready for that. And the NHL, is it me or does the NHL try and hype up Canadian teams a lot more? Like specifically, obviously Toronto's been garbage. Edmonton, you mentioned it. Montreal is always up and down. And it seems like before the season, they're trying to appease the Canadian fan base to say, see, we still have good teams, but in reality, I mean, like we talked about, the American teams far outweigh the Canadian teams, to be fair, but the Canadian teams haven't had success in the last decade or so.
No.
So, they do have to hype up Austin Matthews. They do have to hype up Connor McDavid because right now this is a Canadian sport. I know Canadians, when you go over there, they'll tell you, well, the NHL is just one of the many leagues we love in Canada, because they have the Canadian Hockey League and they have their own. Canada is like what American football is to America is what hockey is to Canada, right?
Facts.
So there's just always they don't really have the same fervor for the NHL that we do, and then it seems like they don't really care. I mean, when I was visiting in Montreal, my Uber driver was talking about how it's always about how Montreal is, the Canadians are, they're improving, we're getting better, and it's just never sort of executed correctly. So it's going to be, but what I'll say is I'm a fan of this format so far because we talked about how it is a little bit quick. Like, okay, you just took months off. Here's one exhibition game, and now you're trying to play playoff hockey.
Right.
That's tough, but at the same time, I am a fan of the format because similar to the NBA, it's almost a tournament style atmosphere, right? So you're not looking at this as a regular season thing anymore. It's playoff hockey. It's a 5-game series to play yourself in. And right now, the Blackhawks, are one of the many teams that are sort of trying to rebound off of a weird regular season and just try and use that momentum where now everyone has a shot, and
right.
Or everyone who's in the tournament has a shot, and that's a pretty cool feeling. And I guess in terms of we were talking before the show how we were a little bit disappointed by, or I was a little bit disappointed by the lack of a bubble in the MLB. And I think the bubble in both the NBA and the NHL has proven to be a tremendous idea. And by the way, there's other industries, including Hollywood and other industries that are basically mimicking exactly what the NBA specifically has done, and the NHL. The NHL has 2 bubble cities. The NBA has 1. The NBA has had 0 positive tests.
Well, this game's almost over before it even started.
4
unanswered goals.
And they put the camera on McDavid. They start off 1-0. But yeah, so two bubble cities for the NHL, 1 for the NBA. They've had 0 positive tests out of Orlando. That's really encouraging. That's hard to do. Even if you are in a bubble, that's hard to do.
And it's hard to do in a state that has kind of gone backwards in the whole, COVID, pandemic that we're going through. So, whatever the NBA, I personally was one of the guys who was saying, just cancel everything. Let the NFL kind of be the stepping stone of maybe what we need to do as far as going forward in sports. But like you just said, you haven't heard anything in the NHL. They've been under wraps. You haven't heard anything by the NBA outside of Lou Williams and that nonsense. Yeah. They've been under wraps.
And Lou Will, let's just be clear, he broke quarantine, but he didn't put anyone in danger. He reported it. It's just a funny story. You know, it's not like he put anyone in danger.
Exactly. But here you are, you have MLB, and like I said earlier, you have Gary Bettman, who people thought was the biggest idiot of all the commissioners, who sat there and called Rob Manfred and said, I got a package coming for you.
He said, hold my beer.
It'll be there in about 2 days. And it was to be the biggest idiot commissioner amongst all sports. He's like, that trophy is yours. You can have that for a while. Dude, Rob Manfred has dropped the ball since he let the Astros pretty much off scot-free for cheating. And now your dumb ass, what's I'm looking for? The policy holders. When you do something wrong, what is that called? Oh my God!
As far as the MLB is concerned, the violation or the
there you go.
Yeah.
Your violation policy, idiots, suspended Joe Kelly for 8 games for something that you should have been taking care of.
Yeah.
Free Joe Kelly. F you, Rob Manfred. You've been dropping the ball. And, go figure that in that Dodger series, that Bregman, Altuve, and Correa, all cheating asses, damn near all hit under a $125. So much so that Oral Hershiser took a shot at him and said, I better his guess of knowing than guessing, because Jose Altuve on a good day would have known that strike three was coming, and he didn't know because they weren't cheating.
What did he
Rob
say?
Manfred, how much more proof do you need? You're an idiot, a complete jackass, and I can't believe not on 20 minutes into this show, and you've already got me snapping off.
I knew it. I knew
jackass.
it.
You're a complete jackass.
And on top of that, you didn't have the balls to punish any of the players.
Exactly right.
You pinned everything on managers. You pinned everything on GM and front office people. You knew when you did that, and everybody knew who paid attention, that the Astros are going to pay for this on the field. This is something that they said. Dusty Baker said. Alex Bregman said before the season. We know we're going to be in the line of fire. It is what it is. And Joe Kelly, a pitcher for the Dodgers, if you guys missed it this week, they faced the Astros, and let's just say the Astros didn't look very good.
No, they look like crap.
Specifically, the hitting didn't look good at all. And you mentioned Oral Hershiser talking about how, it's tougher when you don't know what's coming, right? And it's like, when you know what's coming, it's a lot easier to play that game. So, and Joe Kelly, he was very unabashed. He didn't really hide the fact that he was pissed off. He went after both Bregman and Correa. People are saying, well, why did he have to throw at their head? Listen, man. First of all, if you ask an MLB player like where they'd rather be hit, I'm not sure anyone has a preference of where they would rather be hit with a 90-mile-an-hour ball.
I used to think, should I get hit in the back or the ass? I prefer the ass.
I know some people say, well, if you're gonna plunk him in the butt. It's like, listen, dude. First of all, Joe Kelly notoriously doesn't have great control, but
that is true.
That's convenient. That's convenient to say, but he notoriously has bad control. Over the offseason, he was in a viral video where he was throwing in his backyard and he broke one of his windows. So, is it convenient that he is the guy who is throwing them? No, but basically he struck out Correa after trying to plunk him. And, Correa, essentially, what Correa said happened is that as soon as he struck out, Joe Kelly said, "Nice swing, bitch," and started walking towards the dugout
and gave him a sad face, and
that's iconic to me. That picture is going to be in the history books, and Joe Kelly has sort of become the. It's like he's our figurehead now. Everybody's going to elevate him. And, what you were expecting is the MLB to come out, maybe scold him, maybe come out and give a warning to teams to say, listen, we don't want anybody getting hurt. They could have been understanding of the fact that, we didn't handle this the best. We understand that players and coaches and managers are still upset about this. But instead, what they did is they suspended the guy for 8 games. And 8 games through a 60-game season. That is really excessive. And their thought process was, well, it was the taunting. You know what? How many times? I mean, remember that Reds pitcher, Amir Garrett, who ran? He ran towards the other dugout and tried to take on 15 players, and I think he got something like 6 games.
Yeah.
So to me, it's just crazy. They're trying to set an example with Kelly, and unfortunately, it backfired heavily, even with notoriously pro Manfred media, where a lot like Ken Rosenthal and some of these guys who again are establishment journalists who usually, ride the line because they don't want to ruffle feathers, are saying, hey, this is completely botched. And the Astros to me are being dickheads about it. Carlos Correa, first of all, we know he's kind of weird. Over the offseason, he just proven to be weird, saying weird shit. And then during the altercation, he just kept saying, if I hit a home run, I would have ran home. Or Listen,
which is a lie.
You didn't hit a home run. You struck out. So what
Right.
are we talking about here? At the end of the day, man, the MLB botched this majorly, and Dusty Baker now is trying to play this victim card of what if he hit him in the head? What if he did this? What if one of our players was seriously injured? What if they properly punish you guys or not, because Dusty wasn't a part of that, but what if they properly punish those players? Don't you think that maybe at least some of those players deserve to be suspended, docked pay, something like that? Because when you pin it all on Alex Correa and Carlos Beltran and what was the Houston manager, AJ Hinch? You're basically saying that these players had no responsibility in this, and that's completely false. And that's enraging. As a sports fan, you're like, hey, these dudes need to be held accountable, but it doesn't look like we're going to see it in Free Joe Kelly, man.
Free Joe Kelly. That's probably what we should have named this show.
Yeah, we should have. I'm going to
Free Joe Kelly. Hashtag Free Joe Kelly.
But baseball, I want to stick with baseball because, we didn't have a chance to talk about this earlier, but I mean, the Marlins disaster.
Oh my
God. Rob Manfred, first of all, came out and so for those of you who missed it, the Marlins had a couple of positive tests that snowballed into what turned out to 18 total positive tests on the team. People are trying to make this seem like, oh my God, that's crazy. It's really not that crazy. They didn't take the measures that they needed to take to keep everyone safe. And for that reason, they had to, postpone 2 series.
Yep.
They had to actually reschedule the Yankees to play the Orioles, right?
Yep.
So the Orioles and the Yankees were both going to play the Marlins, and instead they had to reschedule, reshuffle stuff. And then on top of that, the Phillies just had to postpone some games. And now the Phillies might have to look at reschedule. And Rob Manfred came out and said, well, these players need to do better. Hey, bro, you are the fucking commissioner, man. Figure this out. Like, you couldn't do a bubble. I understand the fact that a bubble might be harder for the MLB teams because all the MLB teams are participating. So you got 30 teams, almost a 30-man roster now with this new expansion. And you've got coaches, players, trainers. It's tough to bubble these people. So have an alternative plan. Figure something out to make this safe. But now, as a baseball fan, I would have been hyped for watching that Sox game later on today, and I would have been hyped about them winning yesterday. But now I'm just like, this shit's going to be done by Monday. What am I excited about?
I'm still going to talk smack that On My Head is the best team in baseball right now.
You're going to take the championship even if it's through 6 or 7 games. You're like, we'll take it.
Giancarlo Stanton is already slated to be MVP.
The guy that everyone thought was a bum before.
I was thinking about that in the shower today. I was like, you know what? I think Giancarlo Stanton has got to be hitting 480 something because he was definitely at 500.
He's mashing the ball
after that series against Baltimore.
Yeah.
And he's got to be at least at 470 something. I mean, the man is seeing the ball. He's not swinging as much as dumbass pitches like he would in the past.
Yeah.
The man is, like they said yesterday, he's healthy, but you could tell in his head that he still doesn't run as hard to first because, he doesn't want to strain the calf, as much as when we thought in the beginning of the season, God knows when he was going to come back.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, there should be only 20% of Yankees fans that should be rooting for Giancarlo Stanton because the other 80 were like, oh, he's a bum. We didn't need to transfer him. He's overpaid. He's this and that. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, it's another powerful bat in our lineup that we needed. And I hate to keep bringing this up, but the Yankees, no matter how productive he was or he wasn't last year, especially in the playoffs, the Yankees never lost a game in the playoffs when Giancarlo Stanton was in the lineup. They didn't.
Yeah.
Edwin Encarnacion was in there with one bum wrist, and I'm thinking the Yankees did better with a guy with one bum leg than they did with a guy with one bum wrist.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And everyone's like, oh, well, we had Judge, and we had this, and we didn't need Giancarlo, and we didn't blah, 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 and this and that. The man's hitting 481 and is hitting everything that he wants to, and he's got a couple of home runs, and he's doing a great job playing the DH role right now. So, yeah. I'm with you. Everybody wanted Giancarlo out of here. Like, oh, my God. And like I said, when he's healthy, the man is a beast. When he's healthy and he's not swinging at dumbass pitches, the man is a beast.
Yeah.
And outside of the Yankees, we had to put Tommy Kahnle on IL. Good chance he's gonna now need Tommy John.
Ouch.
Because he said there was something wrong with his elbow, and they said it might be something with the UCL in his elbow, and now they think he might need Tommy John. So that's a huge loss for the Yankees. But go figure that they would decide to bring back the season when the new and improved, jacked Aroldis Chapman is coming back to just throw heat at everybody. If you have not seen the transformation of Aroldis Chapman between the offseason, oh my God, dude, he is ripped.
Yeah.
That is not the same Aroldis that we saw that gave up the home run to Altuve when he knew the slider was coming.
He's always been really
ALCS.
slender and sort of like this tall, lanky guy, and you saw that picture, and he was just kind of like...
The minute that he had... It was like 2 days after he knew that he tested positive for the COVID, and he was already at home lifting weights.
Oh, yeah, he was doing prison workouts.
Oh, my God.
He was doing prison dips.
He was doing dip presses. He's doing shoulder presses. No spot. Just, I'm like, this man's finna kill somebody out here on the baseball field.
Yeah, imagine if he threw that pitch to Correa's head. That would have been dead on arrival.
What did they ask Mirko Crow Cop about his leg kicks? How powerful?
Left
he said,
kick, yeah.
What did he say? Right kick, hospital, left kick, death?
Yeah, left kick, funeral.
Right. Funeral. Take one of them 105s to the back and let me know if your heart's still intact by the time it's over with. I don't think the Astros really realize what they've done, and then they're just thinking, well, everything will be okay. No, you have 29 teams with 30 players, whether they were in the playoffs or not, that are pretty highly pissed that you guys were not good enough talent-wise to figure out how to hit a baseball. And look at your numbers. There's got to be some proof to this.
And what about because I'm asking this because I saw this and I didn't really quite understand what exactly the issue was. But did you see that new? And I think it started with a Red Sox fan. The new video of the Yankees apparently videoing or taking pictures of the opposing catcher in the playoffs. I saw the video. I'm not sure if I saw the full video, but from what I saw somebody with a nice camera pointing a camera at a catcher. I didn't see exactly the details of how because again, the reason why the Astros got in trouble was because they were doing moment by moment updates on what the next pitch was going to be.
Right.
Meaning, you are up at bat, and you are somebody's banging on a trash can, and you're deciphering that and knowing what's happening. What I saw in the video for what they're saying the Yankees cheating is a guy who's doing research and recon on an opposing team. If he were, let's say, had the camera in one hand and a cell phone in the other and was somehow relaying messages to a coach who is relaying it to the players, then we have a case that this is the same as the Astros.
Right.
But to me, this is a case of what I feel like teams do all over the league, which is having spies in every single and they call them scouts. We can call them spies because we're civilians. But at the end of the day, I didn't see anything wrong with that. What exactly have you seen, and what's the thought process right now? Are the Yankees sort of in a position right now that's tricky, or do you feel like it'll be vindicated?
I think one thing that we haven't talked about is, I guess that, remember, they did an investigation on both the Yankees and the Red Sox when they were both in England.
Yeah.
And that's when they were doing the whole Apple Watch thing.
Right.
And that's when MLB came down on both teams and were like, hey, this needs to stop.
Yeah.
They fined both teams. I think they got the Yankees worse than they did the Red Sox. But they were like, this needs to stop. Fined the Yankees a lot. And then they did an investigation on both teams, and they ended up cutting it out. What I didn't know was that there was like some type of independent investigation on the Yankees, but they have these documents sealed. And I guess some judge earlier in the year before the baseball season told Major League Baseball that they need to release those documents to see if the Yankees were doing the same thing as the Astros. And I guess both the Yankees and Major League Baseball have both been fighting, and now nothing has really come out of it since then. But if that's the case, then I'll be very disappointed because the Yankees are too good for you guys to be out there figuring out what the next pitch is.
But again, is it? And I remember the whole thing with the Apple Watches and sort of, this is something that we see it in football. Belichick sending video guys to the Bengals practice so that he can, get recon. They got their hands slapped, and I think they lost draft picks if I'm not mistaken. We see it in every sport, right? And we have to sort of differentiate what is what. And what we're talking about with the Astros is a system that was specifically designed to allow every single player who's up at bat to know what the next pitch is. Not based on research, not based on, hey, watch this video, judge, and go figure it out. It was based on, hey, listen to what the indicator is, and you'll know exactly what the next pitch is going to be. If you're telling me that the Yankees are doing the same thing, definitely we need to get to the bottom of that, right? The Yankees are not any different. And we talked about this even when the story broke about Houston. We know teams did this, right? The problem is they did it in different ways. And we talked about how the White Sox had a system back in the 90s when Tony La Russa was around before he left. And he was talking about how, they had a specific blinker in the right field area where they could see if the next pitcher was... Listen, dude, the Astro did something very specific, and I would like to see the proof that the Yankees did similar thing. Because again, the video that I saw was a guy with a really nice camera with a really nice zoom, watching, basically pinpointed on the catcher and the sign specifically. Now, again, is he relaying that sign? Is it a live feed going to somewhere? This is all something that is very important to know because, again, we have to differentiate what is cheating and what is not. As we are watching some hockey, and I believe this is who is that?
I'm not sure.
That looked like so it was a couple of players for hockey who were one was kneeling and two were at his side. But yeah, sorry, I got distracted by that. But yeah, I mean, I just want to know exactly what it is before we start to because what happens is this is going to open up Pandora's box. We already talked about how the Houston Astros are going to be snitching so badly over the next couple of years. And they've probably already have and probably pinpointed a couple different teams, Yankees just so happen to be one of the best teams in the league. And it's a little convenient that the Red Sox and the Astros, who notoriously, the Yankees have had to battle over the last couple of years. It's no coincidence that both of those teams lost significant resources. Alex Cora had to be, he had to leave the Red Sox on short notice. And then similarly, the Astros were extremely affected by this. Is it just a convenience that maybe that the Yankees are thrown into this? Who knows? But I want to see exactly what we're talking about here before I make a judgment on that Yankees thing because everyone wants to call them cheaters now. I don't see it quite yet.
If there's not a team in baseball that hopes to God, first of all, what's up to Keith Robbins who's watching right now?
What's up, Keith?
If there's not a team right now that hopes to God that the season resets, it's got to be the New York Mets, dude. And I said this on my Facebook yesterday because I have Mets fans on my Facebook, and I saw that they were beating the crap out of the Braves, and they're like, yeah, our offense is back. We're up 7-2. And then my buddy Jen Lamhan, who's a diehard Atlanta Braves fan, said, what a comeback, we win. And I was like, what? Looked at the score. Sure enough, the Braves came back and beat the Mets 11-10. And the only reason why I bring this up was Mets fans and the Mets organization were so quick to get rid of Mickey Callaway last year.
Yeah.
And now you have a brand new manager with the same team that you had last year and the same crap that you dealt with last year, you're dealing with this year. I didn't think Mickey Callaway was that bad of a coach or a manager. What I thought was he made some bonehead errors in the beginning of the season. but he was learning what he was doing towards the end of the season.
And they went on a tear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, you guys really want to get rid of Mickey Callaway that bad?
Yeah.
Especially with the run that the Mets had at the end where everyone, including him, was starting to gel?
Yeah.
How about maybe that the grass ain't on? You remember, you go out and you trade for Robinson Cano and took on that contract for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Then I don't blame you going out to go get Edwin Diaz, because all he did the year before you got him was say 57 games and was the league leader in saves.
Yeah.
But not everybody can pitch in New York.
Right.
Look at Sonny Gray. Sonny Gray couldn't figure his way out of a paper box with the Yankees, and he looks really damn good in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Edwin Diaz can't close games in New York. He can close games. He can't do it in New York. So I think the Mets never had a managerial problem. They had a personnel problem. Yeah. So when are the Mets really going to attack what the problem is that your GM and your scouts freaking suck.
Yeah. And on top of that, I mean, analytics-wise, they had a bit of a tug of war internally, right? It's like Mickey Callaway was very, he was metrics driven, but at the same time, he was also one of those, managers want to get a feel for their players. They want to get a feel for the clubhouse. He had one of the major reasons why Mickey Callaway probably isn't there is because he had some disputes about pitching and how long guys should be out there and when they should be pulled and how many the pitch limits and stuff like that. But I agree. I just think that I have a good friend of mine, Kyle Bailey. Shout out to Kyle, who's a big Mets fan, and we talked about this. I mean, on paper, they look great. If you look at the Mets on paper, you're like, oh wow, okay. You got a star in Pete Alonso. You've got some really solid guys on the corners. Good solid outfielders. Robinson Cano. He's no slouch, even though his contract isn't there. And you've got 4 really good pitchers. So, and what did they do? They went on and get Betances over the offseason. Yep. So they on paper, you're looking at it and go, wow, okay, they have a squad here. And again, the NL East is tough, but when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, is it really that tough? You got the Braves, you got the Mets, and then, really from there, you've got...
And you got the Nationals.
The Nationals, sure, but even like the Nationals, I mean, I'll be honest with you, man, I'm not really that impressed with the Nationals this year. It really goes to show you that last year they did something pretty crazy they did, right? That run they went on was crazy. But like I watched them when they were playing the Yankees, and I know they took one game from you guys, but otherwise you looked at that team and you went, Adam Eaton and Howie Kendrick and some of these guys who were world beaters last year, now they've come back down to earth.
Yeah.
And that could happen to any team, right? Don't get me wrong. You could have, guys who are just normal run-of-the-mill players, outperform. But when you look at it, Philadelphia has spent money up the wazoo. They have really nothing to show for it other than some flashy players. The Marlins aren't even probably going to play this year. You've got the Nationals, who again, when you lose the type of firepower in the pitching staff, and
they lost Rendon,
and then on top of that, you've got a tough division with Atlanta is stacked. You got the Mets, who are very well equipped, and then on top of that, the NL is competitive. When you add the DH into the equation, which we've been advocating for a while, you see the quality go up. Yes, the runs are up. I get it. A lot of people are very upset that pitching is falling to the wayside, but it's not. I mean, just yesterday, I watched a 3-2 game between the White Sox and the Royals.
Yep.
You're gonna see the best of both worlds. Yeah, there were a couple 12 to 10 games and stuff like that. Get used to it, man. Be happy about it. But at this point, it's a 60-game season, and the Mets in specific, and here's another team that's happy if this shit gets canceled. The Astros.
Yeah.
They're probably like, let's just let this shit roll over till next year. Maybe this will get better. But I'm hoping that Rob Manfred gets his head out of his ass, goes back to the drawing board this weekend, and figures something out to come out with next week to say, hey, this is how we're going to prevent stuff. The thing that really bothers me is that I think the Marlins reported that the MLB came to them and said, why don't you call up players from your system and have them fill in? You're going to have 11 players. I think it was 11 players and 7 coaches or something along those lines. you're going to have 11 players who have to be basically down for 2 weeks. They're already a AAA team as it is.
Yeah,
now
you're right about that.
Now you're pulling up more AAA and AA players to fill in just so you can get your ass kicked every single night. That's not a solution. He has to go back to the drawing board and figure out what exactly they can do to make this safe. Otherwise, I'll be honest with you, Nick, I'm not expecting us to see much baseball after this week.
Well, Rob Manfred, as of 1:49 earlier today on ESPN's, when he talked to Kyle Ravitch, said, quote, "There's no reason to quit now despite a positive corona test that has led to the postponement of 17 games in 10 days. Rob Manfred said, quote, "We are playing. The players need to be better, but I am not a quitter in general. There is no reason to quit now. We have to be fluid, but it is manageable." It's almost the same thing that he did say earlier in the week. So it looks like that Rob Manfred is like, look, the season's going.
Yeah.
You guys need to take care. We shouldn't have to babysit you for you guys. If that's what he's saying, like I'm not saying he's not wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, well, but here's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that he's not wrong in that sense. You're a grown-ass man. You know what's going on. Don't go out and be stupid.
Right.
You know you have a job to do. You know what's out on the line. This is what we as the Players Association and we as the owners agreed to. So you should be taking the necessary precautions to make sure that you're not in Atlanta going to strip clubs and then all of a sudden the positive test went from 12 to 18 and it came out you went to a strip club.
Yeah.
So in that sense, yes, I agree that he's correct. But it also sounds insensitive as balls to where it's like, okay, everyone's out here getting sick.
Who cares? Throw them out there.
Who cares? Throw them out there. You guys, like, figure this stuff out. I shouldn't have to hold your hand, this and that. So I kind of see where he's saying, but at the same time, I think maybe it could have been worded a little bit differently. But
remember when the talks came that the MLB was going to resume and they're going to do this, and then for like 3 weeks, the MLBPA and the MLB were going back and forth, and this was this media battle. And one of the things that the MLB didn't do well enough was put restrictions on movement.
Right.
Like, listen, you're grown. You're a player who's making minimum a couple $100,000 from this season. Most of these guys are going to be making millions of dollars from this season. You can stay in the crib for 3 months. It shouldn't be that hard. But the MLBPA took a little bit more of a different stance on it because at the time the cases were waning and we as a country looked a little bit better off. So I think they thought, well, why restrict where they can go and how they can go and you know, why make this a bubble without a bubble? And now we're seeing the repercussions of that. So I agree with you. Great. I'm happy he's optimistic, but that sounds like, you know what that sounds like to me, Nick? That sounds like a GM of a let's say an Applebee's who's like, I got to get this bag. You know what? Yeah, I know we had 5 servers test positive, but we're not quitters. We're going to go back out there. We're not going to mess up this bag because I need that Applebee's money. So the MLB needs it. Let's be honest. I need
to get these numbers. So I know you guys tested positive, but I'm still need you to come into work, wear your masks.
Yep.
Sanitize your hands after you touch each plate.
Still have endless margaritas.
We'll still have endless margaritas, but we're going to hit these numbers despite what's going on. We're not closing. And that's not how we roll.
And then the host is like, bitch, I make $8.50 an hour. So listen, more power to them. I'm happy if they are able to keep the season going because, everybody. Listen, I'm a huge baseball fan. You're a huge baseball fan. I love watching baseball, but do I love watching baseball more than I care about the well-being of players and coaches? No, I think that the same way that I view the NBA. Right, the NBA. They were the first organization, other than the UFC, who didn't really do a bubble thing.
Right.
But the NBA was the first organization to say, this is how we're doing it. Don't care what the players think about this. If you don't like it, you can opt out. That's fine. And we've had plenty of opt-outs. We've had plenty of players who decided not to play. But we're seeing, and to pivot to the NBA a little bit, I watched the opening night on Thursday night. Couple of really good games. That Jazz and Pelicans game was really good, and then the late game between the Clippers and the Lakers was really good as well. And you saw the precautions, and even just looking at the way the arena looks and the way the benches look, and they're spaced out, and everybody's just, masks on the bench, masks from the coaches, masks from everybody, what they're showing is that this can be done. You have to be responsible. We don't know what the fuck's going on. Let's be honest. Everybody who thinks they know what's going on with coronavirus does not know what's going on. And it's changing second by second. So the only thing we can do if we want to enjoy things like the NBA, things like sports, things like, let's be honest, people are already chomping at the bit. Oh, they canceled Lollapalooza. They can't. People already want to go out to concerts and stuff like that. And the problem is, listen, everybody wants to get back to normal life, but it's not going to work like that. You have to have a plan. And the NBA showed, listen, we have a plan here, 0 positive tests. The quality of basketball is pretty good. I mean, it's only been 2-3 days, but the quality of basketball is pretty good. I know yesterday we had a pretty crazy game. It was like 159 to 1.
No defensive effort between Dallas and Houston yesterday.
And you got Houston, who's playing with like 4 guards and a small forward on the floor, and they can barely rebound. But again, fine. But let's keep everyone safe, and let's be honest, everybody's safe. And my boy, Mr. Fauci, came out and said the NBA is a model organization. They've done a tremendous job. So they're getting all the praise right now. Adam Silver, who's already done a pretty damn good job in his tenure, has proven that this is what leadership is. And right now, I'm hoping the NHL stays intact as well, because I like that format. And it's just fun. Listen, this is a distraction for us guys. We as normal people have to go out and eat shit sandwiches every single day.
I swear to God, dude. And you know what? To be honest with you, my timeline today, for the most part, happy the hockey's back.
Yeah.
NBA talk, games all day. We got baseball games all day. I, of course, lit up my timeline with stuff going on with the Rangers. I've seen Blackhawks stuff up there.
UFC later tonight.
UFC later on tonight. I would rather see that than what's my personal favorite? The left this, the right that, mass this, your sheep, shut up.
Or Netflix, yeah.
Or my personal favorite that's going on, and I hate to go off sports, but I find this more hilarious, but I definitely saw this coming. Trump trying to get rid of that TikTok stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, there are so many people pissed off about it, but all I'm going to say is that if you read on what TikTok or who made it, and add on to what's really been going on, you really shouldn't be that pissed off.
Sketchy.
It's very sketch.
And can I say something? Trump can be right sometimes.
You know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying? I don't like him. I don't think a lot of people like him, but he is right sometimes.
I swear, I'm with you on that.
And one thing that he's right about is that TikTok is really sketchy. And not only is it sketchy, it's sketchy towards kids.
Yes.
And that's where I'm like, I draw the line.
You already know that we have riff against China. I mean, speaking of going back into sports, if I'm not mistaken, I just read something the other day that the NBA was doing one of the reasons why they did end up pulling out of China in the first place was because that there were some reports of inappropriate, not behavior, but I guess there was some unfair treatment towards blacks in the NBA camps from the Chinese.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, China is not have a good record when it comes to treating black people or minorities.
And that's why, that's one of the reasons why, like, I have never chomped at the bit to be like, I want to travel the world and go to China. Because I've heard many people that say over there, they're like, dude, they won't even let blacks in certain clubs. They'll let white people in. They'll let, Hispanic people in. They'll let everybody else in. But when it comes to blacks, they're like, oh, no, you can't come in here. I don't have no business of going over there. So the fact that story came out, I'm like, that doesn't shock me at all. That maybe that some of the and I think the problem ultimately was because isn't the general manager of the Houston Rockets black?
Yeah, no, he's not the general manager, but one of the front office guys, because Daryl Morey is their GM, and he's the one who got in trouble for saying free Hong Kong.
Right.
But let's be honest, Nick. China has 1.4 billion people in it, right? That the reason why the NBA was so keen on partnering with them is because of the market, right?
Yep,
you're going to make a lot of money there.
Yep.
Now, after the China thing happened, who did they pivot to? India, Africa. Because why? Huge demographic. India, over 1 billion people. So in terms of like, listen, does every country have weird shit going on? Abso-fucking-lutely. We have weird shit going on here, just like China has weird shit going on there. The problem is we have the responsibility to protect ourselves, to protect our country, and more importantly, to protect our kids. I've got 2 nieces and a nephew. I don't want them on TikTok. I
have a niece and I don't want her on it either.
So to me, go ahead, take TikTok. I know people are going to be devastated about it. Bring Vine back. I don't care. But when you're talking about doing sketchy shit, listen, Facebook takes our data. Everybody takes our data. But from the people I've talked to who know what the fuck they're talking about, TikTok does it in a very specific, malicious, and almost weird way. They've got a lot of fake traffic on there. And it's just one of those things where it's like, let's get rid. Remember during the NBA All-Star break, and TikTok was like a sponsor of the NBA All-Star break, and they had like TikTok stars coming out on the floor during the NBA dunk contest doing dances, and then Aaron Gordon's like, all right, I guess I'll take the ball and dunk it now. so you know what, dude? I'm not gonna. And again, it goes back to the fact of like, sometimes people that you don't like and that you don't agree with are right, and that's okay. So we have to take that into consideration.
Most definitely. But the only thing that I focused on was the fact that that Trump has the rift with China.
Yeah, because he owes them a lot of money.
and the company and the company that runs TikTok happens to be Chinese. And I'm just putting 2 and 2 together. And I know once he heard sketch data, TikTok, Chinese, he was like, we're banning it. I don't want it.
He's got a short attention span. He's like, all you got to tell me are those 5 words. We're gone.
Look at his track record, how he's been talking about the COVID, and then you let me know that.
Calling it the Wuhan virus, the China virus, and,
Kung flu and all that other stuff. Nonsense. Come on, man.
If you owed, let's say, if you owed Massachusetts $100 million,
right,
and then you become the mayor of Rolling Meadows, you are going to do a lot to make sure that Massachusetts looks bad, and Massachusetts is going to do a lot to make you look bad.
Right.
And that's the situation we have with Trump, where Trump owes almost $400 million to China. Not because, they had good business dealings. It's because he went bankrupt 5 times, and after that 5th time, nobody would give him a loan except China. So we have to understand the demographics of what we're talking about. This is deeper than just China being weird. China is fucking weird. Don't get me wrong. But we got some shit going on here. And if it means, hey, we're protecting our kids, because there's already weird shit going on with kids. Let's be honest, man. That whole Epstein shit and everything just got swept under the rug. Man. And we're still talking about, other things, when in reality, we should be talking about, child sex trafficking.
Dude, I can tell there's a gray in my beard all the way from over here looking.
It's aging, son.
God bless.
But you got that thick beard, though.
I know, dude.
I would
legit go to a goatee, but now. So let me throw this out there. When you're in a relationship, sometimes you have to take in consideration what your partner is asking, and the lady's like, "Oh, so I love your beard." I'm like, damn. Well, I'm trimming it down. I keep it on.
Happy wife, happy life.
You know how it is, and I got to trim some of this down. Plus, I'm wearing this hat not only because the Yankees are the best team in baseball, but also because I definitely need a haircut. I need to go back to getting bald. I'm going bald. I am not leaving my hair up. I will go bald. Like I had people come to me and be like, well, why don't you do like the hair club for men or do the Brian Urlacher thing? Because I look good being bald. My dad rocks it. I rock it. I'm not spending thousands of dollars to bring my hair back. It's genetics. What do you want me to do? I never understood
that shit, man. Yeah. I never, listen, if you look, my dad has like 8 or 9 brothers. If they were all facing that way in a line, you wouldn't know who was who, because they all have the horseshoe balding.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put myself on blast. That's what I got. The LeBron James here.
But listen, man, like that's not, and at the end of the day, man, me, I would just rather, because I know I'm probably gonna go, get that soon. The writing's on the wall.
Right.
I'd rather just shave my head and deal with looking like Mr. Clean. I don't care.
That's what I'm doing. Just rocking the ball.
Yeah.
Just rock the ball. No longer are the days of, yeah, man, go ahead, let me get that ball fade and get me crispy on the line. Take it all off.
Just take it all off.
Just
Let's
make sure my beard is lined up correctly.
Yeah.
Take the rest of it off. I don't care.
Beards have overtaken head hair.
Most deaf.
Anyways.
Most deaf. I've noticed that women love beards and tats, and I don't have any tattoos, but I can rock a beard. I mean, I don't have no Santa Claus-esque beard, but this just rocks good for me.
Hell yeah.
This rocks good for me.
I've been trying to grow out my beard for damn near 7 years. It looks like this. So.
Shoot, mine's like this for 7 days. I'm not the one. I hate when people be like when people that struggle come for a beard, and then you get the guys like me, and they'll be like, "Well, I've been shaving since I was 12." Dude, nobody cares.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
I don't like
right. Like why you got to throw that in the dude's face, man? Okay, you got a thick beard. Who cares?
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. We were talking about this on we were talking about basketball, and I saw this in the sports group of my men, and I have an answer to this, but I want to see what your thoughts are.
Okay.
Which one would you rather be? Would you rather be a guy that goes 3-0 in the finals, the NBA finals, or would you rather be a guy that goes 3-6 in the NBA finals?
You're saying, would I rather have 3 wins in the finals with no losses, or 3 wins in the finals with 3 losses?
6 losses.
6 losses. So
okay, so let me put it. Who might? We all know LeBron James is 3-6 in the finals.
Sure.
Right.
Meaning he's lost 6 times and won 3 times.
Right. Because remember, he lost Cleveland
with
early
twice, right? Or was it once? He
the
was
ones
San Antonio.
when they upset Detroit.
That's right.
Got swept by
and
San
then he
Antonio,
went to Miami.
and he lost 2
Dallas,
in Miami.
Dallas, yep.
Dallas and San Antonio. Then he lost
the one with the Cleveland. Or no, he lost one with Cleveland the first stint, 3 with, wasn't it 3-3 with the Heat? No, because I can only think of the Mavericks and the San Antonio. So you're right.
Yeah.
So it's 3, and then he had the Golden State one. Let me look it up so we're not.
I think he lost. I think he went 1-3 against, because Kevin Durant has 2 rings, right?
He does.
So then LeBron James was on Cleveland, both of those.
That's right. He was on for both of those.
So he's lost 4 times with Cleveland altogether, and he's lost 2 times with the Miami Heat.
Yeah, you're right. It's 6 finals losses.
Right.
Yep, you're right.
But remember, LeBron James is going to, prior to him leaving Cleveland to go to L.A., what was it, like 6-7 finals in a row? Between Miami and Cleveland.
Yeah, he appeared in those. Yep, yeah.
That is insane. So my thing is this.
Mm-hmm.
What's your answer? I
was going to say, so obviously, if you're talking about the same amount of rings but less losses, it's kind of obvious that you would take less losses with the same amount of rings, right?
My answer is, who cares?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. 3 is 3, right?
You're a 3-time champion over here.
Yeah.
You're a 3-time champion over here.
Yeah, no one ever mentions how many times you've lost. Yeah.
Thank you, unless you are LeBron James.
Yeah.
And it drives me nuts that only in America, no, let me do you one better. Only in the NBA in America does losses mean anything. Who flipping cares?
You know what it is, though? It's the LeBron MJ debate, right? It's the LeBron MJ debate, and everybody wants to get a leg up. You know, people who are so gung-ho about Jordan, I'm one of them, but I will never take anything away from LeBron, but it's because there's this constant competition, and the only thing right now, because let's be honest, LeBron his trajectory is leaving the stratosphere.
Right.
And he's, if he can do some crazy things over the next 2-3 years, he's gonna surpass Mike. I'm sorry. I know it's sacrilegious to say in Chicago. What Mike did was very special, but if you look at sheer numbers, LeBron has a chance to surpass that, and I think that's why people are so salty.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But the argument I've always had is why are we so gung-ho to compare Michael versus LeBron? Why can't we just enjoy what it is that we see? I I saw a video in the same sports group where some guy was actually making fun of Michael Jordan because people used to always say that LeBron in Michael's era wouldn't have averaged 30.
I hate when people say stuff like
My
that.
thing is, Michael Jordan was going against shorter white guys. There was one clip where Michael crossed this dude over and went straight to the hole, and 4 Charlotte Hornets just stood there and just watched him dunk the basketball. You gonna tell me LeBron James couldn't do that?
He could have done that over four of them if they still.
You get what I'm saying?
That's just silly.
I don't understand. Like, everyone's like, oh, well, back in those days, there were tougher teams. No, there weren't. There were like the Knicks that had bullies. You had Detroit that had bullies that bullied Michael, by the way.
Yeah.
And then you had like the Trailblazers for a little while were bullies. And then
Houston, in that couple of years in the 90s, they tried it. But here's the thing, though. The NBA was a different game back then. So you can't say that teams were more physical. No, the league was more physical. And you don't think that one of the biggest physical specimens of all time in LeBron James couldn't survive in that? I have a hard time. Like, Dennis Rodman said something along the lines of, like, LeBron wouldn't last in our day and age. And these are things that people just say to get in. And you know what? I've turned the tide on LeBron over the last couple of years because I used to be really critical of him and unfairly critical, to be quite honest.
Right.
And all he's done is really prove to everyone, not only is he a class act, he's a leader, not only in basketball but in life.
in life.
One of the you know, what did Draymond Green say over the break? Whatever LeBron does, the league does.
Seriously.
And that you have to take that to heart. That's coming from one of his rivals, right? Not somebody that's played on his team. So yeah, I would say that's just hate, but also take into consideration, you know, when people bring up stuff like that, like if you really want to expand the conversation that much to how many times have you lost then? Well, then let's talk about those teams that he played on. Let's talk about the teams he played against. Let's talk about, you know, I am one of those people who say there was weak competition in the 90s. I'll be honest with you, I don't believe that. And I think a lot of people who say that don't quite understand what the league looked like in the 90s. Mike, in his early years, took on the end of the Lakers dynasty,
Right.
And then the next year it was Portland, and this is when again Mike was still building his resume, right? And then obviously you won 3 in a row, you take the 2 years off, you come back, you win another 3 in a row. That's a really great story. Now we have to talk about the competition that LeBron has faced and what type of teams he had. I think the competition LeBron has had has been just as good, if not more athletic, right? The league is more athletic now.
Most def.
So, and LeBron, remember, he was playing on teams with like Antoine Jameson, 40-year-old Shaq,
Let me talk about that because I think that gets lost in the shuffle too, where everyone's like, well, LeBron James had to team up with guys to win. Okay, well, I mean,
he had nobody on his team.
There is not a single NBA team that has won an NBA championship where it was all by themselves. The only guy that remotely maybe had tried to come close was when AI went and lost in 5 games to the Lakers. He had the one memorable game against LA in game 1, but let's not forget that they went out there and lost 4 in a row after that.
Yeah.
The infamous Ty step back, Jay step over Tyronn Lue game. They win game 1, but then they lost 4 in a row because, Allen Iverson doesn't necessarily have that second option, and some of that is his own personal fault.
Yeah.
But if we're going to look at a lot of the teams that have won NBA championships, all right, so you mentioned the first 3, Michael and Scottie. Then you look at the 2 with Houston. Well, it was Hakeem, and then there was Kenny Smith.
Clyde Drexler.
There was Clyde Drexler on that team.
Yeah.
Then the Bulls won 3 more.
Robert Horry.
Robert Horry was on that team. So then you go back again, and there was Michael and Scottie again.
You got Rodman on that second 3.
And then you had Rodman on that team.
Yeah.
So you had the nucleus there, and then you had a lot of good off the bench, pieces. Then in '99, when the Spurs beat the Knicks in 5 games, it was Duncan and Robinson.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I mean, we could go, and then at that point, the Lakers started their dynasty because Shaq wasn't crap without Kobe, and Kobe wasn't crap without Shaq.
Yeah,
Shaq couldn't win squat with Penny Hardaway in Orlando, and needless to say that Michael was still there when it happened. But hell, once he went to LA, they both blew up.
Yeah.
So to sit here and be like, well, LeBron James had a tee with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh to win a championship. The only reason why people are mad at LeBron James doing that is because he made a whole spectacle out of it.
Yeah, the decision was
right. If it would have just been a normal yes, like everybody else,
breaking news through ESPN,
right through ESPN. LeBron James chooses to Miami. He probably wouldn't have caught as much flack.
Yeah.
But the fact that what people miss out of the fray on that was all the money that was made from that went to the Boys and Girls Club.
Right.
He didn't even pocket the bread.
Yeah. And listen, the like Golden State, for example, their first championship, you look at that team and you go, wow, they built this team from the ground up. But then they ruined it by bringing in KD, right? And when they brought in KD, that you had to think that LeBron kind of went, okay, because I'm not the only motherfucker who's going to be under the microscope now. And then, KD showed his, let's be honest, KD does not have a great reputation both in the league and with its fans right now. It's weighing down because he hasn't played in a while. But
right.
At the same time, people are not really too happy about the hopping in the league. But you have to understand, dude, like, this is the way that NBA free agency works. If you don't think so, ask or go research on any of the huge free agent acquisitions in the last 10, 20 years. They all started with recruiting by players, recruiting by GMs, catering to these people. And Miami did a tremendous job of doing that.
Yep.
What did Pat Riley do? He came in, he said, listen, I've got D Wade here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear out everything for you three. I'm going to obviously Bosh took less money. Obviously LeBron took a little bit less money and they ended up making it back at the end of their careers. But Miami had a tremendous pitch and did a tremendous job of selling, and LeBron bought it. So me as an older, more mature man, I have a little bit more sympathy for that. But again, the decision was the real reason people pissed on him.
I think so.
And that documentary is really looks really good.
And let
too.
me say this: if Leon Rose was running the Knicks and not James or who was it at the time?
It wasn't Phil, was it? No, it couldn't have been.
Nah, it was a little bit before Phil. But if Leon Rose was been there, all the reports were like LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, because I remember that decision. I remember getting 3 notifications where everyone was saying that they were in a New York state of mind. They almost joined the Knicks.
They almost want to join Chicago too.
I don't know. I don't know what Miami did or where New York messed up, but somehow they changed their minds and ended up going to Miami. If Leon Rose was running the Knicks, I guarantee you they would have came to New York. Yeah. And you know what, dude? I'm so sick. I'm now, as a Knicks fan, I'm so tired of the bashing of the Knicks. I'm further tired of the bashing of the Knicks from certain Bulls fans. I know that New York and Chicago have this long-time war, but what I'm getting tired of is everyone trying to crap on the Knicks as if the Bulls have made these glorious decisions since over the last maybe 10 or 11 years. Yesterday, Trey Burke, Kristaps Porzingis, and Tim Hardaway Jr. all combined for like 93 points and 55 rebounds.
And really good.
He looked amazing.
Yeah.
All 3 guys were with the Knicks before they traded him. And it's another shot from Bulls fans to the Knicks. If you really want us to start on what's been going on with the Bulls, don't give me the 98 stuff. That's done. Okay, let's talk about this century, because if we want to be extra real about it, and I hate to be like, I don't even want to gloat about it.
Be the bearer of bad news.
Who's the last team to be in the NBA Finals? Since the glory years of the Bulls, who is the last team between the Knicks and the Bulls to be in the NBA Finals?
Was it Knicks in 99?
The Knicks in 99.
Yeah.
I don't want to gloat about that. But stop sitting here and be like, well, y'all haven't won since 73. I get it. Y'all haven't been jacked since '98.
We
And
like
don't
to
give me
hold on
what.
to those
And I love the. Well, if Derrick Rose didn't get hurt, we would have beat Miami. But he did, and you didn't make it to the finals, and you haven't sniffed it since.
When your team sucks, you got to hold on to whatever you can.
I mean, I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that.
Yeah.
I have Marlin fans that come in my face and be like, oh, the Yankees suck. We beat y'all in the World Series back in 2003, and y'all haven't been jack since.
Oh, man.
Okay? So I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
However, the pot should not be calling the kettle black.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah, for sure.
The only reason why I even beef with Bulls fans 9 times out of 10 is when the Knicks play the Bulls.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden it's like, oh, let's keep throwing these pop shots at the Knicks because they've made bad decisions. So have you.
It's like a cup of water telling the ocean it's wet. Like,
You get what I'm saying? Like, how, dude?
yeah. And here's the thing, right? Like with Bulls fans, man, it's really bad right now. Like, even this new regime that came in, there's reports now that players are not buying into this. They're upset that Boylan's still around. They're upset that actually Gar and Pax have tentacles, like meaning they still have sort of proxies within the organization that are still holding down progress. You know, it's ugly right now. We shouldn't be talking about any other organization except our own. We still got Egghead as a coach. If you guys are looking for a comprehensive and very detailed breakdown of why Jim Boylan sucks so badly, you can go to my Facebook page and look at a 26-minute breakdown of just how bad Jim Boylan is and how bad he's been. So, listen, dude, there's no – and here's the thing. I mean, to be quite honest, the Knicks are in a better position right now than the Bulls are. I mean, the Knicks have cap flexibility. They have young players, and they have hope still. And the Bulls, I mean, the only 3 players that we have are all being – thrown into trade talks right now, which just shows you that they're trying to dismantle. So, yeah, don't if you're a glass of water, don't call the ocean wet.
I swear, dude. And I don't even like really focus on the Bulls like that. You know what I'm saying? Because I got my own issues to worry about.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about what the Bulls aren't doing, but every time
people are bored.
Right, every time there's a Knicks report, here come the Bulls fans. Ha ha, your team are a bunch of idiots. Okay, Jim Boylan.
Oh my God, Tom Thibodeau. Even Mike Miller, like, dude, Mike Miller, that dude. I hope they keep him on the staff. By the way, are they going to keep him on the staff?
I think they should too.
Yeah, they should.
I really think they should too. But I don't know what's on Tibbs' mind. I really think he should keep Mike Miller on there.
Now, is Tibbs gonna jump into the same role he jumped into with Minnesota, which is like player operations? Did Leon Rose mention anything like that? No. Okay.
I think what's his name is still going to be quote unquote GM. He might have some input.
Yeah,
but.
That's probably best though, because
right,
let's remember, it didn't really work out well in Minnesota.
Yeah, Scott Perry's still the GM.
Yeah, let's remember that Tibbs was the 100% dictator in Minnesota. He made every single decision from top to bottom, and that didn't work out too well. And I thought that was weird because, listen, the reason why they did that was because Tibbs was so handcuffed in Chicago that Minnesota said, listen, come over here and we'll let you do whatever the hell you want. And the grass isn't always greener, like you said earlier. And Tibbs went there and figured out that shit, this GM shit is hard, man. Like, figuring out how to construct a team like that is not easy. So at the end of the day, man, I think the Bulls fans should all be focused right now on holding the Bulls accountable for what they are. I mean, listen, Jerry Reinsdorf is already, complaining and crying that he's losing money. The White Sox and the Bulls are hemorrhaging money for him. And to me right now, the writing's on the wall that the Bulls are probably going to be trading and moving on from Zach LaVine, probably trading and moving on from Lauri Markkanen. So there's not much to be optimistic about other than maybe shitting on other teams. So I guess we'll take that for what it's worth. I was watching some highlights earlier of the NBA stuff. I think the game was Denver versus Miami earlier, and Jimmy Butler was one of those guys who said he wasn't going to wear anything on the back of his jersey. It was a kind of a symbolic, cool thing, but they weren't for that, and they made him wear a jersey. But Bol, man, oh my God, like the fact that the Bulls had 2 shots to drafting Bol and they decided not to is like almost like as bad as it gets because Bol looks amazing. he needs 2 years to put on muscle, right? He needs definitely, guys like that. Like Bol is not going to be able to be on a regular diet plan and just be like, go gain 40 pounds. Like, no, he needs comprehensive physical conditioning, a diet. He needs all of that. But speaking of guys who, need a little bit better conditioning, Zion, first of all, they came out before the game on Thursday and said he won't be on a minutes restriction. Instead, they're going to play him in short bursts, 3-4 minute bursts. They did that, but then they sat him for the last 5 minutes of the game. Mm-hmm. And I was watching it live and thinking, why? He's only played 17 minutes up until that point. Why not put him in the game? They end up losing the game down the stretch. And, this is basically an 8-game tournament, guys. You have to win. You have to win to get in. And I think if you're within, I want to say if you're within 2, is it within 2 or 4 games of the 8th spot, then you have a play-in game. So basically, if you're in the 9-10, if you're in the 9 or 10 spot, and you are within 2, I think it's either 2 or 4 games of the 8th seed, you have a play-in game to see who gets the 8th seed. So this is really, really important for the NBA, as far as these games. And same thing with the MLB. I mean, we were talking about last week, the White Sox were like on the verge of being 0-3. And every game in the MLB, guys, because it's a 60-game season, every game is essentially 2.7 games. So we're 10% through this MLB season, Nick. That's crazy to think about. We're so used to the 162-game schedule, and now I think it's been 6 games, and we're 10% through.
Right.
So again, like the White Sox right now, I believe 2-4, 3-4 now. I'm sorry, because they won last night. They essentially were in a position where it's like it's must win after 3 games. Like, so this is the type of urgency you're going to see from these sports now. The NBA is similar to that right now, but I'm surprised that Zion didn't have more of a role. And I think maybe, Alvin Gentry maybe knows something that we don't know right now, because they're being very cautious with him. We talked about how thick he is. It's weird to see him on the court. He's got the waistline and the hips and the legs of an offensive lineman.
Right.
And he's also got the hops and everything like that. But I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but his hops didn't look nearly as good in that game than we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing his head near the rim, and a couple times he had a couple of alley-oops where maybe he's just not trying hard to get up there, but he doesn't look quite as explosive as he used to. So maybe that's why Alvin Gentry's like, maybe we should pump the brakes on a 60-game season, right? Or on a tournament like season here. Maybe it's not worth it. Let's just save this guy.
Before we go on to football, did you see this where Andre Iguodala went on to Twitter and said, number 23 from the Mystics is nice, and then Ariel Powers turned around and said, put respect on my name or keep this tweet to yourself. There's been a lot of back and forth to it.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at this from, I'm seeing both sides of this, right? My personal thought was, I'm actually kind of on the side of Ariel Powers in a sense of you couldn't take 5 seconds to figure out who number 23 is. Like, you just gonna throw my number out there like we're playing NCAA 14 and there's no names.
Or you're going to the local rec league and you're like, wow, number 23 is nice. No, you know who she is.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you get some of these guys out here, specifically men,
of course,
who will say, well, they should have just been lucky that they even knew that even Andre Iguodala would even grace their presence.
Oh, God.
Bro, that's not the point.
Yeah.
That's not the point.
Yeah.
If we all already know, the equality that women are trying to get with men and everything, the WNBA, in my opinion, I think is actually a lot better than what I think people give credit. And the only reason why I think a lot of men nowadays don't watch the WNBA, what's the number one reason? Well, they don't dunk. It's all layups.
Yeah.
Who flipping cares? It's 2 points. There's some of these girls out here that probably wreck some of these guys. I will guarantee you that if Diana Taurasi went up against Matthew Dellavedova, she would take the biggest shit all over him because Matthew Dellavedova sucks.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, I would take 5 of the best girls in the NBA and put them up against 5 of the... I would take 5 girls who... I would take 5 of the rookies right now in the WNBA against some of the 5 veterans that ride the bench in the NBA.
Jared Dudley,
Matthew Dellavedova.
We had a running list.
Chris.
Yeah, Marquise Chris. We had a running list.
There it is.
There
it is. I would take Dellavedova, Dennis Smith,
Eddie Robinson,
Marquise Chris, and Cristiano Felicio. I would take Diana Taurasi,
Brittany Griner.
What's
her name? Candace Parker,
Elena Deladon,
Duggins.
Sue Bird is old.
Yeah.
She would screw Dellavedova because he sucked.
The number 1 pick, Sabrina. Oh, she is a baller, dude.
Too bad she got hurt and might have to miss the rest of the year.
Oh, man. Yeah, so can I say something about the Iguodala stuff? I came in defense of him early because you've played basketball and I've played basketball in the past. When you, as a basketball player, go into a gym and you're sitting with your buddy on the bench and you're watching people, you say to him, damn, number 23 is nice, right? That's sort of basketball speak, right?
Right.
And that's why I immediately came to his defense and said, wow, you can't even compliment somebody anymore without like this being a huge issue. But again, we as humans, man, we got to admit when we are blindsided, when we don't have the type of perspective that we need to have. Because when I looked into it further, I started to see her point. She's one of the best players in the league. She's a WNBA champ.
Thank you.
She is widely considered to be one of the top 5 players of all time in the WNBA. That's pretty crazy to think of. She's only been in the league for a couple of years. So that in itself is like, wow, Andre, you could have done better, right? But Andre is tweeting, right? He's just out there tweeting, and he tweets out something relatively harmless. Again, talking about basketball speak, and it didn't work out in his favor. But then... what is her name? Ariel Powers?
Yeah.
She came with the receipts and pulled up an old tweet of your boy Andre Iguodala saying, I don't want my daughter going into the WNBA because I don't want her to be a lesbian. Listen, man, when I saw that, I'm like, okay, I see what we're talking about here because, there's this hidden sexism in life, right? It's just a very thin layer of this hidden sexism, and we kind of, again, like you talked about, because nobody's dunking on each other, you don't get to understand how good these players are. And my best friends who I know understand basketball all follow the WNBA. Not follow, maybe, but they all understand that these chicks are ballers. So, listen, man, I see both sides of it, but Andre's got to do better. He came out and doubled down in a way and said, oh, you're rude, or said something about how, like, no manners or some shit like that. At the end of the day, man, men can talk to women any way they like, but when a woman decides to say something, it's all of a sudden a huge issue. So I hope it's not a huge deal. I hope Andre's man enough to go in, apologize to her, say, hey, I made a mistake. Here's my intentions. I didn't mean to disrespect you. Next time I'm going to do myself the favor of educating myself.
Key said he was like, I didn't see the problem with what he said, but he was like, you're right. And he said there's a lot of hidden racism and sexism in the world today. Yeah, most deaf, but...
And I feel bad for Andre because maybe he did have good intentions, right? And again, we talked about how this is sort of basketball speak. Damn, number 23, nice. Like, these are types of things you say when you're balling with your friends, but it's different when you are an NBA player who is talking about a WNBA player. And let's remember that the WNBA and NBA are intertwined.
Yeah.
They are very intertwined. So Andre's got to do better, but at the same time, again, I don't want this to turn into let's cancel Andre, right?
Right.
I want this to turn,
that's not the
let's
point.
turn this into, hey, Andre, let's educate you as to why she was offended, why many of her her teammates were offended, and let's grow from this, right? Let's make this better for everyone. everyone.
Right. No, I'm with you 100% on that part. So, excuse me. How do you guys feel about Jonathan Isaac standing up for the anthem? I'm glad you brought that up because it's gonna get us into the NFL.
Yeah.
First, before I do get into that, Mike Smith is out just because he sucks against the Blackhawks.
Is it 5-2 now?
You know what? I didn't put the. I had the I had the standings for the baseball to let everybody know that the Yankees are the only team with one loss. You know what that means? They're the best team in baseball right now. So Mike Smith's gone.
Mm-hmm.
According to the Score app, Matthew Stafford has been has tested positive for COVID-19.
Hope he wasn't at the team workout.
I hope not either.
6-2 Blackhawks, by the way.
There are return dates right now for the Phillies and the Marlins. Here, let me pull that one up.
Oh, they did. Wow. So, I mean, maybe baseball's saying, but here's the thing. How do you have 18 positive tests and then reschedule within a week? These guys have to quarantine for at least 2 weeks.
You would think, right?
You know, I that's the thing is like, we keep hearing conflicting information. You know, part of the reason why this whole people are being idiots about the mask is because we've got so much contradictory information. First, you got Fauci saying everything's all good. You wear a mask, everything will be fine. Then 2 weeks later, he says, oh, you don't really need to wear a mask because da-da-da. When in reality, all he meant was don't go and buy masks and hoard them so that our frontline workers don't have any. And it's just this confusion right now.
So according to this, it's saying that 20 Marlins players were hit with the COVID.
Players, wow.
They said that the Phillies are scheduled to resume play against the Yankees in a 4-game home-and-home series. These teams will square off at Yankee Stadium the 3rd and the 4th, and then they'll go back to Citizens Bank Park on the 5th and the 6th.
So they're saying next week they're going to resume?
Today's the 1st?
Today's the 1st, or today's the 1st. Wow.
So
they're going to start on Monday or Tuesday.
So that'd be Monday, what'd I say?
3rd and 4th, right?
So that's Monday, Tuesday, and then they'll go back to Philly 5th and 6th.
Sounds a little rash, man.
And then let's see. MLB plans to have the Marlins, who have been quarantined in Philly since July the 25th, so they've been in there for a week, play a 4-game series against the Orioles at Camden Yards from the 4th and the 6th. One of those will be a doubleheader, and the Marlins will be the home team for 2 of the contests.
Your boy Manfred said, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna start."
And
this shit up.
then Orioles manager Brandon Hyde said he's not concerned about the Marlins, provided the league has performed due diligence. He said, quote, "We're trusting Major League Baseball, and I feel really strongly that we followed the protocols so well here. I know that MLB is on top of it. If they feel like they're comfortable with them playing here, I'm comfortable as well, just because I know how stringent our protocols are and how they're keeping players' health and safety first for everybody." So there you have it.
That sounds nice. I mean, let's see. Let's figure it out.
Yep. So that's what's going on there.
Cool. But Jonathan Isaacs, he wasn't the only one, by the way. Greg Popovich, and Becky Hammon yesterday also stood. But the difference was Jonathan Isaacs didn't wear a Black Lives Matter shirt, and he stood. He said he spoke with his teammates, and I think he's a pastor, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's a minister or a pastor. He said, "I don't kneel
anybody before God."
You know what he actually said? That was the baseball player who said that. What Jonathan Isaac said was, he said he doesn't think that kneeling for the anthem is conducive or helps Black lives. I'm not sure I think he's him, like a lot of people in this country, are caught up in the mantra Black Lives Matter. They're caught up in what those 3 words strung together mean.
Right.
And I don't think he's quite understanding the huge scope. So to me, I'm not mad at him. I don't think any of his teammates are mad at him. Just like we want people to have the freedom to kneel, I would also like for them to have the freedom not to kneel. Greg Popovich, one of the most outspoken advocates for Black Lives Matter. This dude's record is on paper. We know how much of an advocate and how much of an ally he is. He's also an Air Force veteran. He's also somebody who has feelings towards the anthem and towards the flag, and he's allowed to have those feelings.
Right.
And I think Charles Barkley said it on Thursday night. Because what happened was New Orleans, the Pelicans, and the Jazz all kneeled and all did it together. The Lakers and the Clippers all kneeled, all did it together. And I think what Chuck said was, let's not demonize players and coaches who don't do this, right? Let's understand. I think this is a good learning experience for Jonathan Isaacs. He's a young kid. He's not even 24, I don't think. Nope. So you have to take into consideration that this is a kid with a large amount of influence who is very, his faith is very important to him, and he has perspectives that may not really align with what that is. That's fair.
And that's fine.
That's fair.
Yeah. The guy that we saw, the hockey player that kneeled,
yeah,
was Minnesota Wild's Matt Dumba.
Matt Dumba, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you know who he was? He was the one who came out and exposed a bunch of racism in the AHL and the minor leagues. He got a couple coaches fired, along with that other. I think his last name was Aliu, the other guy. But listen,
the coach that got fired, the one for the Flames,
the Flame, and we also the Blackhawks had an assistant coach who was on that team. I think he also got fired. So that's something I'm fine with. Clean that up, please, by all means. But if you're not kneeling, it doesn't mean you don't care. We have to scrap that.
So Dumba gave a speech ahead of Saturday's game between the Hawks and Oilers. He said, quote, "During this pandemic, something unexpected but long overdue occurred. The world woke up to the existence of systematic racism and how deeply it's rooted within our society."
Yeah.
He also said racism is a man-made creation and all it does is deteriorate from our collective prosperity. Racism is everywhere. We need to fight against it. On behalf of the NHL and the Hockey Diversity Alliance, we vow and promise to stand up for justice and will fight for what is right. And then that's when he decided to take a knee between Oilers defensive men Daryl Nurse and Chicago Blackhawks backup Malcolm Subban. Yep. Yeah.
So listen, that's fine. I love that. We talked about this last week, though, and something that I respect Jonathan Isaacs for. This fight doesn't end with putting on a shirt and kneeling, right? Like you're not pushing forward the type of agenda that we want as far as change by just kneeling and by just wearing a Black Lives Matter t-shirt, right? We want to see more than that. And I want to see the NHL, quite frankly, as a league who, let's be honest, is notorious for its racism and its racial exclusion of, it started with non-Canadian and started with non-white, and now it's sort of branched into this other thing. I'd like to see them take monetary steps. I'd like to see them take steps to help within communities. That's important to me. That's something that the NBA is doing. The NBA is putting its money where its mouth is. It's all great. It's all fine and dandy if you want to kneel. But kneeling's trendy now, Nick. Remember when Cap came out and kneeled? Everybody was against him. And I'm glad LeBron said this because LeBron said something that was very poignant. He said, it's cool to kneel now. It wasn't cool when Cap did it. And I'm proud of LeBron because he acknowledged the fact that it's trendy now and everybody thinks that this is the end all be all. Let's just sit and kneel and, hold arms and, wear Black Lives Matter and this is all we need to do. No, we have to take action. We have to take steps.
Let me respond to what you said about the NHL. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that I don't agree with you.
Yeah.
What I am saying is maybe the reason why the NHL has maybe been a little slow to foot about this is because at the end of the day, what are they supposed to do? And what I mean by that is we all know that 95% of the NHL is white.
Right.
And that's why I got very upset. Now, he's done turned a leaf, and I'm talking about former Ranger, current Columbus Blue Jacket coach John Tortorella. Because when this all first started off, John Tortorella was like, well, if anybody on my hockey team decides to kneel, well, then they're going to get scratched for the rest of the game. I don't care who it is because you're not going to disrespect the flag.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, John, who's going to kneel? You have no black people on your team.
Yeah.
And that's why I got so upset with some of my friends because they're like, well, John Tortorella gets it. Dude, outside of PK Subban and Dustin Byfuglien, and I think Kevin Weeks was still in the NHL at the time, and a few others, there's not really a lot of black people that's in the NHL that's being affected by what's going on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, of course, now, as of late, John Tortorella was like, you know what? I've taken a new leaf, and everyone's jumped on her like, oh, you're just a pawn in the game. No, as we mentioned last week, dude, sometimes if you actually open your eyes and not just always be in your phone and on the television, and you in your bubble, and maybe actually expand out and realize that there might actually be more of a problem than you think.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll have a different eye. You may not necessarily agree with what's going on, but you can understand why somebody's doing something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, look, if somebody was bullying somebody, right? And that person turned around and punched them in the face. You may not agree with him using physical violence for it to stop, but you understand why somebody used physical violence to stop. And we're in this is where we're at right now.
Yeah.
So when I see people on their Facebook talking about the left this, the right that, Democrat this, Republican that, and blah, 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 dude, it's something beyond that. Because, not to get political again, but in my own personal opinion, when you start to look at the world, or not even the world, let's just look at the United States for what it is, because I like to worry about my own backyard before I can care about what's going on in England and South America and all that stuff. When I look at the United States problem, if we all learn that there might be something a little bit bigger than what's going on than this whole left versus right thing, America could be great again, as the saying goes, beyond red and blue. Yeah. It's like, guys, stop. There's problems that's going on. I'm not saying all cops are bad, but I'm saying there's a lot of stuff that's going on that's not being addressed. I'm not saying, as a black man, do I approve of everything that black people do? Absolutely not.
You don't have to, yeah.
But A, I don't have to.
Yeah.
And B, we shouldn't be killed for it.
Right.
That's my point. So, for John Tortorella to actually turn a leaf, I'm thinking, okay, he's getting it. And I'm hoping that there's more people out there that can get it. And that's why, to your response about the NHL, of course they're going to be a little slow with the paper. Like, I just saw that Evander Kane, who's a part of that diversity program, was like, the NHL hasn't done stuff to protect our black players. But as of a couple years ago, when it all came to light, I'm pretty sure it was all turned to a blind eye because nobody really knew. Yeah. Like, until that PK Subban, and it was no shock when he came out and said it, that he's gone through all kinds of racism and BS when he came up in the hockey game.
Yeah.
Of course I knew it was going to happen. But you didn't know how big it really was until more people started coming out. And then you do your own investigation. You're like, damn it. Okay, yeah, something here is not stirring the Kool-Aid. We need to do something. So that's why I would say I would wait till 2021 or maybe even 2022 for the NHL to be like, all right, look.
Let's figure something out.
Let's figure something out. Or not even let's figure something. They're on the let's figure something out phase now.
True, yeah.
You'll be in the here's the plan of execution. This is what we got.
Yeah.
And this is what we're going to do for the protection of you guys and for the integrity of the league.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm not upset. Yes, they need to do something, but I knew they were going to be slow with the paper. It's not like NBA where 75% of your league is black, and in the NFL, where 70% of the league is black, and what's the other one? Baseball, where 90% is either black or Latino.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
but taking so for the Tortorella stuff, we have to allow people to be wrong.
Right.
Like, not meaning, hey, you're wrong, go ahead and be wrong. No, it's about John Tortorella came out and made a rash decision. Same as what? Drew Brees, a couple of other people who came out and basically said, well, flag and flag this and the military this and this.
And Drew Brees is still on it, by the way.
And we can but it's also about, like, what happened with Drew Brees. Well, he went and talked to some of his closest teammates, and they explained to him why what he's talking about is bullshit. And he came out, whether or not you want to feel it's coerced or not. I felt it was coerced. I felt like he felt his back was against the wall, and he just said anything to make it better. But Tortorella's allowed to change his opinion. Yep. He's allowed to educate himself and say, you know what, I messed up. That was a bad thing, and he should be lauded for that. He should be applauded for that because it takes a real person to do that. In terms of the NHL specifically, and this is something that I've talked about with baseball. Tim Anderson, one of the sort of figureheads of black people in baseball, he said it very well and very eloquently that people have to understand the socioeconomic dynamics around why minorities choose specific sports. So, for example, hockey's a very expensive sport to get into.
Right.
It takes, first of all, you have to be in the right area, and it's a very time-consuming, money-consuming hobby/sport. So, in terms of whether or not you as a parent, as a black parent, are going to put your son into basketball or baseball or football or hockey, football, all you need is a ball. And you go and you basically, you start off with that. Basketball, literally all you need is a ball and a hoop. And in terms of baseball, we don't see a lot of the best athletes in the country playing baseball.
Right.
In general, right? The people who go into baseball truly love baseball. And similar to what you're talking about with the NHL, it's gonna take time for minorities to warm up to hockey and figure out what hockey is in general and how to love the sport, right? Nobody goes into a sport just because it's like, I'm really good at this. I started playing Little League and now I'm just whatever. No, you get into it because you love it. You have a passion for it, and maybe you're right in terms of that. There's really not a lot of that in the NHL. But here's one thing that Ali guy said is that the racism starts at the JUCO level, at the junior level, at the Little League level, and it's a lot of times coaches who don't make a lot of money and are probably red asses, scolding black. There's again that hidden sort of layer of racism of you don't work hard enough, and these racist tropes that we've been taught to think about black people in this country. So there's steps to take. I though don't want to get caught in the symbolics, right?
Right.
We as a country can't get caught in symbolism. That's why I'm so against this whole, you're against the flag, you're against America. Listen, the flag is a piece of cloth. And at the end of the day, it means different things to different people. Me, as a son of immigrants who has people around me who came to this country because this country was the greatest country in the world at the time. And now we're starting to see that we are allowed to be sensitive and aware of what's going on. Our country is slipping significantly, meaning countries are passing us. Like, we used to be the land of opportunity, right? You come here, you work your ass off, and no matter what happens, you're going to get the opportunity. And that's no longer true. And education, slipping very hard. Infrastructure, slipping very hard. The only thing America is the best at right now is military. And that's because we put damn near 65% of our money into the military, right? So does that do really good for people who want opportunity in this country? No. We no longer accept refugees. We no longer accept immigrants. We see them as nuisances. We see them as people who are, dragging down our country, dragging down our economy. So again, symbolism, we have to get away from that shit. Realize why Cap was kneeling, why these players are kneeling, and what that form of protest means. What they're doing is taking something that's very important, a very important symbol to many people, and creating their own symbol and saying, hey, this is what we believe. Now, I want to see the action taken. I think the players are doing it. Many players are donating their salaries. I don't think they should have to be quite honest. I'm disappointed in the way the NBA has handled that. Like, I forgot who it was. Drew Holiday on the Pelicans. He said he's gonna donate the rest of his year's salary. That's great. The NBA though is a $1 billion business. They should be out there making the contributions, and they are. Let's give credit to where it's due. But let's get over symbolism. We don't care about, I'm not a fan. I'm going to do it in my Bill Clinton. I'm not a fan of politicians. I'm a fan of policy. That's what we need here, right? And I did the little thumb thing that Bill Clinton did. So yeah, as far as Jonathan Isaacs is concerned, more power to you, Jonathan Isaacs.
That's how I feel.
Something tells me, though, Nick, and maybe we can revisit this hopefully in year 10 of Mac and Black.
Yes.
That very, very far down the line, we're going to see Jonathan Isaacs come out and say, maybe I wasn't as educated on the subject as I thought I was. Maybe I was a little bit too, and that's okay. He's allowed to do that. So I'm happy to see that DeMar DeRozan came out and supported Becky Hammon and supported Greg Popovich. Because again, I thought what Popovich did was very, very important. What he did is he has a track record for 25 years of being an advocate for black people and inequality and inequity in this country. And what he did was said, I don't have to, that doesn't mean that I have to kneel for the flag. That's the way he said it was basically, I'm not going to explain it, but I can almost guarantee you that his reasoning is like, listen, I'm here to show that there's differing tiers to this movement, right?
Right.
We're not all on the same wavelength. We all have the same goal, but we're not all on that same level with each other quite yet. And that's going to take time, and we're going to get there eventually.
I'm with you on that, and I agree with you on Jonathan Isaac. If he decided he wanted to stand, that's his prerogative. I'm not the one to be like, oh, you don't care about black people now. Yeah, because man, it's your decision.
Yeah,
and as we go into the NFL, it's the same thing with Drew Brees. Drew Brees came out and was like, "Look, I'm not going to kneel for the flag, dude. That is your prerogative.
That's your business. Go ahead.
That is your
business. But don't keep people's name out your mouth who are
exactly. So we'll see what happens, but we're going to get into the NFL because we have two divisions. I swear I feel like we've only been talking for 20 minutes.
I know, right?
Talking for an
Time
hour.
flies by when you're having fun, man.
Exactly. We got two divisions to cover here, and we're going to get through those. Real quick, though, the Bucs signed LaShawn McCoy to a one-year deal, and I feel very good about that because hopefully LaShawn McCoy can teach young Rojo a thing or two. I think it's putting a veteran back there with the veteran to allow the young kid, because really
good pass protector.
Teach Ronald Jones. Like, think about it. As far as I'm concerned, this is Ronald Jones' third year in the league. As far as I'm concerned, this is his second.
Yeah.
When the guy came out his rookie year and said, I can't even know the playbook, and nobody's here to teach me it, then it was a lost year, because when you're losing snaps to slow-ass Jaquiz Rogers.
Oh, my God.
Dude, I could not wait for
a special teams player as a starting running back.
Is getting reps. Getting reps.
Yeah,
it's a joke. So as far as, like I said, and you're bringing in a really good seasoned veteran, LaShawn McCoy, who's got a few years left.
He was on the championship team last year.
Exactly.
So it's okay.
Good signing there for the Bucs, but we're going to get into the NFL. They are destined to have a season this year. They're not hearing none of this COVID nonsense, even though I did just mention earlier that Matthew Stafford has tested positive for it, so I'm sure he's going to quarantine now for the next 2 weeks. We're going to start off in the AFC East, and the way I like to do it is I like to assume who I think is going to be the worst and start with who's going to be the best. So without further ado, I'm going to start with the New York Jets.
Yes. Who, by the way, I don't know if... we did report it live last week about the Jamal Adams trade, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the Jets last year ended up getting... hold on, see, it's coming back. They ended up getting... it was Bradley McDougall, two first-round draft picks, and a third for Jamal Adams.
And a fourth.
Yeah.
Which, by the way... great value for the Jets. I mean,
I'm with you 100% on that.
Can I do a sidebar too?
Sure.
Doesn't that make the Khalil Mack trade look a little bit better? Because the Bears gave up 2 firsts and a third for Mack and a fourth, and the Seahawks just gave up 2 firsts and a third for Jamal Adams and a fourth.
Right.
So with all due respect to Jamal Adams, he's not as proven as Khalil Mack. So we're starting to see the trade value sort of, interlink here.
Exactly. And then looking at the depth chart right now, the New York Jets, obviously Sam Darnold is going to
I think breakout year maybe, man. I mean, the thing is, they're going to
Frank
have to
Gore
pass a
left-
lot.
Frank Gore left Buffalo to go to the Jets.
He did, yeah. Which Frank Gore is just going to play for every AFC
No
East team
whammies,
by the
dude.
yeah.
I don't know why. Well, I guess Buffalo's got a lot of running backs too.
Yeah, and Singletary's going to be their
Yeah.
number one guy this year.
So you bring in Frank Gore to back up Le'Veon Bell. You know, the same Le'Veon Bell that Adam Gase didn't even want. Remember, they also signed Joe Flacco to back up Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
They also did sign Brashard Perriman from the Buccaneers.
And they drafted Denzel Mims, too.
And they drafted
Yeah.
Denzel Mims.
Yeah.
They got Jamison Crowder on the team. You got Chris Herndon as your tight end. And it looks like you're starting offensive line is Mekhi Becton, the kid you drafted out of the first round from Louisville. Alex Lewis, Connor McGovern, Greg Van Roten, and George Fant. And then the Jets run a 4-3 defense. So Henry Anderson, C.J. Mosley's on the team. Obviously, we just talked about them trading Bradley McDougall. I mean, trading for Bradley McDougall in the trade for Jamal Adams, Avery Williamson, Jordan Jenkins. So now they still got Quentin Williams on there. So when I look at the Jets defense, kind of like outside of maybe a C.J. Mosley, it's not really a lot of household names. You know, gone is the Shelton Richardson, and gone is Williamson, and gone is Leonard Williams. You know, he's with the Giants now. You know, C.J. Mosley's still on the team. There were a little bit of talks of maybe the Jets entertaining signing Jadeveon Clowney if they could free up some space.
Yeah.
Not sure if that's going to happen.
And why would he want? Why would he?
So much money.
And he's a dummy because, dude, you're still on the market right now, and you don't even know. You don't even know if, like, first of all, in this type of atmosphere with COVID going on, bro, whoever your agent is, fire them, please.
Seriously. So gone are the names, but if we're looking at the schedule real quick, I'll pull up the Jets schedule.
And by the way, I do want to mention specifically for the Jets because this is a funny storyline. Le'Veon Bell came out and started beefing with Jamal Adams because he said that Jamal Adams was one of the main guys who recruited him to New York,
right?
And basically said as soon as you have a chance to leave. But to me, dude, Jamal Adams didn't decide his fate. The Jets suck so bad that they decided his fate. They should have extended him right away. It should have been an easy extension for him. Instead, they made it tough, and he made it tough on them.
And I think also Jamal Adams, because remember, he had that small list of teams that he was going, he wanted to go to.
He wanted to go to the Cowboys,
he wanted to go to the Cowboys, and one of those teams was Tampa. Because remember, Todd Bowles was his coach when he drafted him, and he just seemed very disgruntled that after they fired Todd Bowles. So you fire Todd Bowles, but then you bring in Adam Gase, who for the first 5-6 weeks of the season looked like he didn't even know what he was doing, like a deer in headlights, and the Jets were just that bad.
Right.
They started to turn around, but then you started to see, he was still outspoken about being there, and he didn't want to be there anymore. So I think that factored in. But looking at the Jets' schedule, they start off in Buffalo, and then they're at home against San Francisco, at Indianapolis. They have a Thursday night game at home against Denver. Then next week they're at home against Arizona. Then they're at the Chargers, home against Buffalo, at Kansas City, Monday night game versus New England. That's going to suck. And then they're at Miami. They have the bye week in 11. And then their final 6 games is home and home. Back-to-back home games. Between the Dolphins and Las Vegas. Then they're at Seattle. So that game, I'm pretty sure, will be the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the main CBS game for everybody. And then they're at the Rams, home against Cleveland. They finish off against the New England Patriots. Looking at the Jets and kind of, I'm kind of thinking, I'm looking around somewhere between 6-10 and 7-9. Like I think Sam Darnold takes the next step up. I think Brashard Perriman, Jameis Winston got Brashard Perriman paid. We'll see if it's Jameis making Brashard a better wide receiver than he's been because he sucked so long in Baltimore. But when Evans went down and when Godwin went down, he really did step up. Actually, when Evans went down is when you saw Brashard Perriman really step up, and then he became Jameis's favorite target once Godwin went down, and really looked like the wide receiver we all thought he was coming out of UCF, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And so Now we'll see if he could be the number one guy for the Jets.
No Robbie Anderson anymore.
And
either.
no Robbie Anderson anymore. So I don't think that the Jets are a team that's going to go to the playoffs, but they're not going to be a top 5 drafting team. So I'm thinking 6-10, 7-9, somewhere in there.
Yeah, you might be giving them more than I will because I don't see. I think that first 4-game stretch that you mentioned,
Buffalo, San Francisco, Indianapolis, and
Buffalo,
Denver.
who I think is going to be the division winner.
Me too.
San Francisco, who's fresh out of a Super Bowl appearance.
Yep.
Indianapolis, who we all believe was a tremendous team, and all they need was a quarterback, and they have Phillip Rivers now. So that's going to be a tough stretch. Honestly, there's not a lot to look forward to for the Jets, other than maybe watching Sam Darnold because he's going to get to throw it a lot because they're going to be down a lot. I honestly see them as more of a 4 or 5 win team, but who's splitting hairs at this point?
Right.
We just know that they're not really going to be that great this year.
Let's go to Miami and talk about the Dolphins next.
Much improved
Miami Dolphins.
Who we clowned this time last year. Let's be honest.
We did.
We clowned them for some of the moves, and we're eating our words
and
here.
think about it. There was the whole are the Dolphins trying to tank for Tua, and the funny thing is it worked out in about the most unconventional way that you would want it to work out.
Yeah.
It worked out because had Tua not gone down with the hip injury, I think him, not Joe Burrow, is the number 1 overall pick.
Interesting.
I think Cincinnati actually goes and eat. And I know Joe Burrow had a great season, but if you're gonna, I still think because of the hype that was around Tua, I still think Cincinnati maybe would have given him the edge. But he goes down with the hip injury, and then, there was still uncertainty if he was going to be healthy or not. But the doctors came out, it's like, hey, he's fine. If you want to draft him, you can. He's ready to play.
Yeah.
And so the Dolphins are sitting there with the 4th overall pick, end up turning around because you're in front of Washington, who didn't need a quarterback. They go out and get Chase Young. And then you had the Giants, who didn't need a quarterback because they got Daniel Jones last year. So they ended up getting the 3rd best offensive lineman in Andrew Thomas. And Andrew Thomas is going to be a monster. I just didn't think – I thought Tristan Wirfs was him and Mekhi Becton, I think, were above Andrew Thomas. So then he just falls down to 4th anyway. So they get their quarterback. You're still going to probably still have Ryan Fitzpatrick on the front line. Miami, I still think, finds themselves in the most precarious position at quarterback. And I mean this in the most positive way because, Ryan Fitzpatrick's got 2 years left in the tank.
Maybe, yeah.
Tua is your future, but then you still got young Josh Rosen sitting in the weeds.
which he may not be by the time we're talking.
And that's why I said it's the most precarious in the positive.
Yeah,
because there's teams out there like my Buccaneers who could really use a young backup quarterback. Now we'll get into the South way later, but Tampa did pick up somebody on the non-draft list that they're super high on. I'll get his name and stuff, and I was introduced to him, and he's like 6'4", 225, and this kid's really supposed to be good. But I've always entertained maybe giving a 5th or 6th round pick to the Dolphins for Josh Rosen.
Why not?
Like, why not? Like, let him sit, behind Tom and learn Tom Brady and whatnot and learn the system. But, they got Jordan Howard this year. They got Matt Breida, who left San Fran to go over to Miami. Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, Albert Wilson, your 3 wide receivers.
Lots of offensive line help too.
They did. They get Eric Flowers. They got Austin Jackson, Ted Carreras, Shaq Calhoun, Robert Hunt rounds out the offensive line. And then I'm looking at the defense.
Lots of additions to the defense.
Kyle Van Noy is over there now. They went and signed Byron Jones. Xavier Howard's on there. Bobby McCain, Christian Wilkes. So the defense is actually pretty good. And
they were good under Flores last year
really
too,
were.
with less talent.
Right. And looking at their schedule this year, so they start off in New England. They're home against Buffalo, at Jacksonville, home against Seattle, at San Francisco, at Denver. Then back-to-back home games against the Chargers and Rams. And then they're at Arizona, and then they're home against the Jets before they go on their bye week 11. at the Jets, home against Cincinnati, home against Kansas City, home against New England, and then they finish off on the road at Las Vegas and then at Buffalo. Ryan Fitzpatrick is a very interesting quarterback. I don't know how long he's actually going to be the starter.
Right.
Now I was about to say, well, if they does great in the preseason, but obviously there's no preseason. So I think Ryan Fitzpatrick is still going to get the nod week 1. I can easily see Tua taking over by week. Their next home game, I would say at least by week 7 at the Chargers. Because I don't see, unless Fitzpatrick gets hurt, New England, Buffalo, Jacksonville, Seattle, and San Francisco, and to an extent Denver, all have really good defenses. And I think Tua would borderline get killed if he's out there. The Chargers' defense is good, but it's at home. Yeah. So I think that you would rather, if you're going to bring in Tua, why not bring him into a home game?
And probably Justin Herbert will be starting by then too.
Exactly. So looking at the Dolphins schedule, 8-8.
Yeah,
I would say at least around 8-8, possibly.
Yeah. But here's my big thing with Miami. I take this into consideration because me, armchair quarterback, I think the Patriots are going to struggle this year. The easy route to take is to say, well, Tom Brady left, so they're no longer good. But yes, that's one factor. Another factor is they've had like close to 10 opt-outs in the last couple of weeks. Lots of which are from like really key players, offensive line guys, defensive guys, a couple wide receivers. I think Marquise Lee just came out and said he's one of their acquisitions this year. I know they picked up Cam Newton, and we'll talk about that.
Yep.
But I just see Miami overtaking New England this year.
Okay.
Because what I see is Brian Flores. We didn't know him as a head coach when we criticized the moves that they made.
Right.
And once you saw him as a head coach, you could see why players like to play for him, and you could see why defensively New England was very disappointed when they lost him.
Yep.
Because defensively, with makeshift parts, guys you've never heard of, Miami was staying in a lot of games last year.
Right.
And you started to look at them and say, wow, if they just had one or two pieces here or there, they could really make a difference. And next thing you know, Cal Van Noy, Byron Jones, Jordan Howard, Eric Flowers, drafting Tua, another couple running backs to the mix. This is a team
and they drafted an offensive lineman to protect Tua as well.
Exactly. So you're looking at it from a perspective of how you have 2 games against Buffalo. Those are both going to be really tough. But you have 2 games against New York, the Jets, and you have 2 games against New England. If they can go 3-1 against New England and the Jets, they may be in playoff contention for all we know.
Yep.
So I think 8-8 is very, very good for them. I wouldn't be surprised to see them take a step that we weren't expecting.
Right.
Because what happens is Fitzpatrick, and you know this, he was on your team for a long time. Everybody has a low bar for him until he steps on the field, and everyone goes, God damn, how is he doing that? He's flipping into the end zone, or he's doing this, or he's zipping passes here or there. Once you start to see that he's a veteran guy who can navigate the locker room, and then if you can get the running game going a little bit with a better offensive line and 2 veteran running backs, and now you have a defense with new pieces, that makes a big difference. So I think 8-8 is good, but you may see them slip into a 9-7, 10-6 surprise team like we've seen over the last couple of years. But surprisingly, and this will lead us into the Patriots. I think Miami has a very good chance of overtaking the Patriots because I think the Patriots might be tanking for Trevor Lawrence.
I think they are too. And as we sit here and we look at the Patriots and look at their depth chart, as you mentioned, so they bring in Cam Newton. And the never-ending going story is who's going to start for New England. Because Bill Belichick came out and said, just because we signed him
doesn't mean he's our starter.
Doesn't mean he's our starter.
What a hard ass.
in typical Bill Belichick. Because they said, for 18 years, he hasn't had to ask about who's going to be the starting quarterback because it's already been etched in stone of who it's going to be.
Yeah.
So now is it going to be Cam? Is it going to be Jared Stidman?
Yeah.
Obviously, they have Sony Michel and James White back there. Julian Howard, Muhammad Sanu, N'Keal Harry being the 3 wide receivers, and then
who they drafted in the first round last year, N'Keal Harry.
N'Keal Harry,
so,
yeah. And he got hurt those first few weeks of the season,
Mm-hmm.
and he was supposed to be the quote unquote deep threat for what's his name, Tom Brady, because Julian Edelman's getting old and he was getting hurt, and then Sanu's not really a downfield threat, so you bring in N'Keal Harry, and he started to come along a little bit, but had some of the dropsies. Then looking at the offensive line, Isaiah Wynn, Joe Thuney, who's kind of was actually, if I'm not mistaken, was really on the trade block for a little while.
He's looking for an extension, I think, that they're not willing to give him.
Yep. David Andrews, the center, Shaq Mason, Corey Cunningham.
And I think Shaq Mason might be one of the ones who opted out. No, that was the other guy, the other offensive lineman. So yeah, they on paper, you're looking at him, you're like, okay, with Cam at the quarterback, you've got 2 really good running backs, a team who notoriously has a great system for running backs, but the wide receivers, I mean, it's not like Cam is used to working with all-star receivers as it is.
That's true.
But at the same time, on paper, they look okay.
Especially since Steve.
Oh, yeah, no.
And then looking at their defense, I mean, outside of Stephon Gilmore, who got the 99 rating on Madden,
surprising,
and Devin McCourty, I mean, Lawrence Guy, Bo Allen is over there now. He was with Tampa. Chase Winovich, Jawan Bentley, Cashman. Because I think a lot of these names that they're put on the depth chart is after everyone pretty much opted out.
Yeah.
So,
which I have the opt-out list here, and we can go over that after the depth chart. But Patrick Chung, one of the big ones. You can name it.
Because
I mean, Marquise Lee just came out today. He was one of their prize acquisitions as far as wide receivers. He said he doesn't want to. Dante Hightower, one of their leaders on defense. Patrick Chung, another one of their defensive leaders. The guy that I was talking about was on the offensive line was Marcus Cannon, a very good swing tackle. And then you have Brandon Bolden, who's kind of like a fan favorite and a third string running back that Belichick loves. He's opted out. Their fullback, Dan Vitale, opted out. And then, from what I've seen, and from Patrick Chung came out and said it, there's a lot of players who are still evaluating this. And you have to take into consideration these guys have families, right? These guys have Patrick Chung specifically has a pregnant girlfriend and a 3-year-old. Those are understandable things.
Right.
So when you have that growing list, and then on top of that, let's be honest, Belichick, he's used to like plugging and playing guys, right? Like the guys you've never heard of, and all of a sudden they're a world beater. So I'm not saying that, but when you look at the depth chart and then you look at the 3 defensive leaders that they had that are no longer going to be playing, that's a tough hit for their defense.
It really is. And then pulling up their schedule for this year, as we mentioned, I think they start off at home against Miami. They're at Seattle, home against Vegas, at Kansas City, and then home against Denver. And then their bye week is week 6. Then they're home against San Francisco, at Buffalo, Monday night at the Jets, home for Sunday night against Baltimore. That's interesting with no Tom Brady that already I just named off
3
back-to-back. Yeah, you're right, because they have a Sunday night game at Seattle.
Yeah.
So then you have a Monday night game against the Jets and then a Sunday night game against Baltimore. So I'm surprised that they're giving them that much airtime, even, I guess, because it's New England.
Sure.
Then they're at Houston, home against Arizona, at the Chargers, Thursday night game at the Rams, at Miami, and they finish off at home on another Monday night game against Buffalo, and then they finish off at home with the Jets.
Interesting.
I'm with you. I think they're trying to tank for Tua. I think they're going to suck. I probably should have started off with them because I don't think the Jets are going to tank. Yeah. I think they're just going to suck. Miami's going to be better, but I have no idea what New England is trying to do. There is a lot of talk about them wanting Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
If
anything, it's just tank for a high draft pick,
you know
right?
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that somehow Bill Belichick will find his way up in the top 1 or 2 picks.
Yeah.
Because you never know. A team that could be the best team, be the worst team in the league, may not even need a quarterback.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like Cincinnati could, again, go 1-15.
Yeah.
And be like, Dad, we need the best wide receiver. Or trade down, be like, I don't want to use the wide receiver with the first overall pick.
Sure.
So you never know. But, 4 4-12 for New England. It sounds dumb as hell.
Yeah.
But when no matter how good of a coach you are, sometimes when you lose so many pieces, even the best coaches, I mean, hell, Greg Popovich is an amazing coach, but they got the number 1 pick when they had to go get Tim Duncan, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
So I mean, 4-12, maybe 5-11. That's a stretch.
You know, the way I see it is New England has a lot to prove this year. And so does Tom Brady, right? We could talk about that later, but both of them are trying to prove each other wrong. Tom Brady's trying to prove that he's not a system guy. He's one of the best quarterbacks of all time, regardless of the team or the coaching staff. And Bill Belichick is trying to prove that this is his system, that New England has had success for so long because of his system. But when you look at it, I mean, I think off the top of my head and on my hands, I think I counted maybe 6 wins there.
Okay.
AFC West is a tough division this year.
Very tough.
You know, you're going to have Denver, who's much improved. You're going to have Vegas, who's much improved. You have the Kansas City Chiefs there, and on top of that, you know, the Chargers are the Chargers. They're always going to be sort of somewhere in there.
And their defense got better.
Defense got better, and they got a quarterback of the future, which you never know what happens there. So I think 6 wins, but here's the thing: would we be surprised if they went 8-8, 9-7, 10-6? Probably not. I wouldn't be, at least, because when you look at it on paper, they could be, you know, a team that maybe defensively isn't strong enough, but if they can control the clock with running the football, Cam eliminates mistakes. I mean, remember when Cam and Carolina went on that tear? That defense wasn't tremendous, right? It was one of those things where Cam and the offense were keeping the ball in their possession for a long time, and then they were just running the score up and letting their defense make plays. So you never know with Belichick, but I do think that this is the year that they fall behind. Obviously, Belichick's job is safe, so I think the thought process is no matter what, if you get Trevor Lawrence, that's great, but if not, you'll get a high draft pick. They've already lost some draft picks, so and by the way, they'll have financial flexibility next year too. Right. So you never know. I think 6 wins is probably where they're at, but again, I'm not going to be surprised if they go out 8-8, something like that.
And then we'll finish off in Buffalo, who you and I both believe are going to be the best team in this division.
Yeah.
Obviously, the quarterback is Josh Allen. Devin Singletary will be the starting running back.
Watch out for Singletary in fantasy this year, man. I'm telling you, people are going to sleep on him this year. He should be a top 5 running back.
The guy that I thought that Buffalo put themselves over the top is when they traded the first-round draft pick to Stephon Diggs. And I actually love that deal because it was like, okay.
For both teams, too. Yeah.
Right. Because Minnesota gets an extra first-round draft pick, but then the Bills are sitting there in the 20s like,
all right. We're good. You can have it, yeah.
Stephon Diggs was obviously out of touch. I would say out of touch. He was disgruntled in Minnesota because since they're now a run first, catch second, or pass second team.
I think part of him, Adam Thielen, was a little bit too. He was overshadowing Diggs a little bit.
A lot of it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it. I think Stephon Diggs has better hands than what they gave him credit.
Yeah.
And it was, like you said, it was the
Mike Zimmer,
Adam Thielen show for whatever
and Mike Zimmer is notoriously hard to play for too. Yeah. So let's keep that in mind.
So Stephon Diggs, John Brown, Cole Beasley. That's
a pretty nice one.
That's a pretty nice 1, 2, 3.
I mean, as far as quickness is concerned, those are 3 of the quickest guys in the NFL. They may need a guy who's physical, but they have a couple tight ends too, Dawson Knox and guys like that. Tyler Kroft, yeah.
Deion Dawkins, Quentin Spain, Mitch Morris, Spencer Long, and Cody Ford is left tackle to right tackle.
That's a really good offensive line.
It really is. Yeah. And then looking at their defense, they run a 4-3 actually. So Trent Murphy on the left side, Vernon Butler, my boy EO, the tackles, and then Jerry Hughes.
And Oliver's going to have a tremendous year this year, I think, too, yeah. We both knew that he was severely underrated during the draft.
If the Bucks didn't need a linebacker, I wanted them to draft Ed Oliver so bad. I'm thinking Vea in the middle with EO coming off the end.
And last year he was playing like a space eating role. This year in a 4-3, that's where he's going to shine. He's going to shine as a pass rusher.
I'm telling you, EO is a monster. And then looking at their linebackers, Matt Milano, Tremaine Edmonds, AJ Klein.
Edmonds is a young, really good linebacker, yeah.
And then left to right in the secondary, Tre'Davious White, safety.
One of the most underrated cornerbacks in the league.
Easily. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, and Levi Wallace finishes up their finishes up the secondary.
That is a really good defense. I mean, they didn't have to make many additions, and it's still a really good. That secondary specifically with Poyer and Tre'Davious White, we talked about how underrated he is, and then Micah Hyde, who all he's done in the league is prove people wrong. So it's a really nice defense.
And then looking at the Bills' schedule for this year, they open up against the Jets at home, at Miami, home against the Rams, at Las Vegas, at Tennessee, home against the Chiefs, at the Jets, back-to-back home games against New England and Seattle, and then they're at Arizona before they go on their bye week 11. So 3 NFC East, AFC East teams have their bye week 11. New England was the only one that didn't. And then they get home against the Chargers, Monday night game at San Francisco, Sunday night game home against Pittsburgh, at Denver, Monday night game at New England, and then they finish off in Miami. I think Buffalo's 11-5 and win this division. I really do. I think the biggest key out of all this, and we talked about how good the defense is going to be, it's all on Josh Allen. And the only reason why I think it's all on Josh Allen is because I thought last year, if you look at that game, the second game they had against New England in week 2, New England was not that great in that game.
No.
The reason why they lost was because Josh Allen kept throwing interceptions specifically to Stephon Gilmore, and
he was staring down receivers.
He was staring them down. And I know that last year they didn't really have, they had John Brown, who's not used to being the number one, and they had Cole Beasley, who really wasn't getting open because that's how good the secondary was for New England last year.
They're both basically slot guys, right?
Right, exactly. Especially Cole Beasley.
Yeah.
And I think, the chemistry between John Brown and Josh Allen really started to come along as the season went on, but it was an immense struggle in the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that bringing in Stephon Diggs was so important, because Stephon Diggs can be the number one guy. But I think it's all on Josh Allen. If Josh Allen could get just a little bit of accuracy and not just slinging the ball wherever he sees fit, where it's like, I know I got a strong arm, but I knew I shouldn't have thrown it, but I let my arm try and prove it. If he could cut those mistakes down, I'm telling you, Buffalo's really going to be good. So I'm thinking they're the only double-digit team that I see. Now, Miami could potentially be one, but I think automatically, I think the Buffalo Bills are it. 10-6. I'm thinking 11-5. I think 10-6 is too low. I think I'm really high on Buffalo. I really think they can make it up to 11-5.
Like unless New England truly has their number and sweeps them and wins 2, there's probably 10 wins other than those 2 games. So, the thing is with Buffalo is, and specifically with Josh Allen, he needs to improve his footwork.
Yeah.
That's something that people don't really understand in the NFL. It's like, you can have the strongest arm in the world, but if you can't compose yourself in a pocket, if you can't, find a way to make tough, like Patrick Mahomes, everybody loves to mention how he's got a gunslinger arm, and oh my God, he can make side-slinging passes, and he can do no-look passes. But one thing people don't realize is how steady his base is, that his feet are always in a position to make the play.
Yep.
And Josh Allen seems to be the one who's always trying to run away from something. We saw in his rookie year, he set records for rushing because he was just basically running for his life. Last year, when teams, and let's remember, Buffalo was in a couple of really ugly games last year where their defense basically won it for them and the offense sucked. So this year, I don't see that for them. I see that they have a better offensive line now. Devin Singletary, I think, like I said, don't sleep on him fantasy-wise because he's going to catch a lot of balls, and he's a guy who can make people miss. So in this offense, that's going to be big because you now have 4 guys who, when they have the ball in their hands, they're really fucking fast and they can make people miss, and 3 of those are wide receivers, and Stephon Diggs is a prototypical guy that could really help them down the field when it comes to as an extra wide receiver. So I think 10 wins is probably very safe for them. And like I said, said, if they can come out and surprise people and like sweep New England, they could probably go 6-0 in the division. That's 6 wins right there. 10 to 12 wins is very easily attainable, especially in a year where things are reshuffling a little bit for teams. So 10 to 12 wins is definitely there, but I think they're locked to win the division.
So let's go to the AFC North. This is no shock. I already have Cincinnati sitting up here.
Cincinnati.
So obviously we know that they drafted Joe Burrow with the first overall draft pick. Also on this, we have Joe Mixon, Giovanni Bernard being the number 1 and 2 running backs on the team. AJ Green. Now, did John Ross?
He's still there.
Okay.
Yeah, he's still
there.
there.
They don't even have him as a starter. On the 3 starters on the depth, right? They have Tyler Boyd and then T. Higgins.
T. Higgins. Oh, okay. So let's. You know why? Because T. Higgins was really, really highly drafted.
Yeah.
And he was really highly touted out of college. But dude, AJ Green, John Ross, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins. I don't know. They don't have Eifert anymore. I don't think.
No.
But they just don't have an offensive line. That's the real big thing for them. And Joe Mixon's good too.
Yeah. And then tight end is. CJ
Uzuma. Yeah, that guy's been there forever, and all he does is he's the league's best third string tight end.
Yep. Jonah Williams, Michael Jordan, Trey Hopkins, Xavier Su'a-Filo. I think that's who they drafted in the 2nd round, I want to say. And then Bobby Hart is left to right of their offensive line.
That's gonna be rough.
And then and then looking at their defense, Carlos Dunlap. They run a 4-3, so from left to right, Carlos Dunlap, DJ Reader, Geno Atkins, Sam Hubbard.
That's not a bad front four, to be quite honest.
Right. From weak to strong linebackers, Jermaine Pratt, Josh Bynes, and Logan Wilson.
That's where they're going to struggle.
And then from left to right in the secondary, Trey Wayans. Your safeties will be Von Bell and Jesse Bates III, and then William Jackson III is the right defensive back. And then taking a look at the schedule for the Cincinnati Bengals this year, they will open up against the Los Angeles Chargers at home. And then they're at Cleveland, at Philly. That at Cleveland's a Thursday night game. At Philly, home against Jacksonville. Then they're at Baltimore, at Indianapolis. And then back-to-back home games against Cleveland and Tennessee. Then the bye week is week 9. And then back-to-back away games against Pittsburgh and Washington, home against the Giants, at Miami, home against Dallas, a Monday night game against Pittsburgh, and then they finish off at Houston and in Baltimore. I think Cincinnati is still a team without an identity.
Right.
And I'm scared about what's going to happen with AJ Green because I'm not sure if – like AJ Green signed his –
tender,
they signed it. He signed his tender. He's going to come back. He's older. He's had constant foot injuries. John Ross was actually doing well last year before he ended up tearing his shoulder.
And he's always hurt himself.
And he's always hurt. I think John Ross, to me, is the equivalent of Darius Hayward-Bay. Where
really fast.
The only reason why they was drafted was really fast. We knew when Al Davis was alive, when he was still running the Raiders, he drafted Hayward-Bay over Crabtree because of his 40 time.
And same thing for McFadden, right? He drafted McFadden because McFadden was faster than
over his 40 time. And now I think that's what happened with John Ross, where John Ross broke CJ2K's record of the fastest 40 at the combine. But he didn't do but he didn't do anything that was that spectacular in Washington. If you watch the tape, you're saying to yourself, you're thinking that you have another Deshaun Jackson.
Right.
But I can sit here and tell you that Deshaun Jackson, outside of the blazing speed that he has, can make those tough catches up the middle. John Ross is not that dude.
Yeah.
So you go out and you draft T. Higgins, and then, you look at your defense and it's kind of middle of the pack. Like, I'm thinking maybe 5 or 6 wins.
Yeah.
It'll be much better than where they were last year. But I think there's just too many questions. Like Joe Mixon, I know Joe Mixon was a borderline lower first round, definitely second round pick by most fantasies, but you can't trust the offensive line to make holes for him to run through.
I didn't touch him with a 10-foot pole last year because everybody knew that it was going to be lots of Joe Mixon and really nothing else on defense. So, what I'm really worried about is offensive line and linebackers.
Yeah.
Both of those units are really bad, but here's the thing. I think Cincinnati should be ecstatic if they get 6 wins this year. They should be really happy because, first of all, their number one priority should be making sure Joe doesn't get hurt,
right,
and doesn't put himself in the line of fire that isn't normal for a regular NFL QB. But they've got a long way to go as far as defensively. I know I said their front four is pretty nice and their back four is pretty nice as well. But they're going to give up a lot of points this year. They're going to be playing from behind a lot. So I think maybe 3 or 4 wins is probably where they're going to be at. But if they get 6 wins, if I'm a Cincinnati fan, I'm happy with that.
Most definitely. Let's go to Cleveland. Obviously Cleveland's coming in with excuse me, Baker Mayfield,
my boy Baker,
Nick Chubb. Remember, they do have Kareem Hunt still on the team, so that's your 1-2 running back. Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, and Rashard Higgins are your 1-2-3 wide receiver. Here's the one I found interesting. Austin Hooper on here is listed as the starting tight end.
Yeah.
David Njoku, I just read, apparently was wanted to be traded.
Wow.
He's now rescinded and said he's all in with the Browns. From left to right, Jarek Willis Jr., who they drafted in the first round, Joel Bitonio, J.C. Treader, Wyatt Teller, and Jack Conklin, which was their big free agent signing.
That's not a bad offensive line.
It's really not. It's actually a really good. Remember, Jarek Willis, the funny thing is, Tristan Wirfs, again, was the number 1 rated offensive line
out of Iowa.
But Andrew Thomas, Mekhi Becton, and Jarek Willis Jr. all passed up on him for him to fall to Tampa. So I'm actually kind of anxious to see what it is that everyone missed in Wirfs. I think Becton got drafted because of his size.
Right. And I think all 3 of them, the thought process was they're going to develop into better players than they are right now.
Right.
And I think what it was is Wirfs, his ceiling or his floor was already so high, but his ceiling was sort of limited. So I think a lot of people felt like maybe there wasn't a lot of room.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry about this, but we lost our sound right at the end of this show. So there was about, maybe 15 more minutes worth of audio, but we had some technical difficulties. So you'll have to tune in next week, and we will have a full show, hopefully, if the technology gods are willing. And thanks again for hanging in there for 2.5 hours. I appreciate y'all, and take care.